Hello there, and welcome to another journey into the quietly extraordinary. I'm glad you're here. Maybe you've had one of those days where your mind just won't settle. Or perhaps you're someone who finds peace in learning about the strange and beautiful ways our universe works. Either way, tonight we're exploring something truly remarkable. A place where the impossibly small world of quantum mechanics meets the warm, breathing reality of life itself. Quantum biology. Just saying those words together feels almost contradictory, doesn't it? Quantum physics belongs to frozen laboratories and mathematics so abstract it barely feels real. Biology is messy, wet, warm, and alive. And yet, increasingly, scientists are discovering that life itself may be running on quantum rules. That the very act of being alive, of seeing, smelling, thinking, even existing, might depend on phenomena that Einstein himself called spooky. Tonight, we'll wander through this frontier gently. No rushing, no urgency. Just curiosity and wonder as we discover how robins navigate using quantum entanglement, how your nose might be a quantum detector, and how the energy that powers every cell in your body may rely on quantum tunneling. Some of what you'll hear might surprise you. Other parts might simply wash over you like a gentle tide as you drift toward sleep. Both are perfectly fine. Before we begin, if these explorations help you unwind, or if you'd like to support this quiet corner of the internet, consider subscribing. It helps others find their way here too, one restful evening at a time. Now, let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow. And let's begin with something we all take for granted: the simple act of seeing. Every time you open your eyes, quantum mechanics is happening inside them. Vision feels instantaneous, doesn't it? Light enters your eye, hits your retina, and suddenly you see. But that moment of suddenly contains a quantum event so precise and so fast that it defies ordinary chemistry. Inside your retina, there's a molecule called retinol. It's attached to a protein called opsin, and together they form rhodopsin, the molecule that makes vision possible. When a photon, a single particle of light, strikes this molecule, something extraordinary happens. The retinol molecule changes shape. It isomerizes, flipping from one configuration to another in less than 200 femtoseconds. That's 200 quadrillionths of a second. This isn't just fast chemistry. It's too fast for ordinary chemistry. At these speeds, the molecule doesn't have time to bump around randomly, trying different configurations until it finds the right one. Instead, it appears to take multiple paths simultaneously, a quantum superposition, before collapsing into the correct shape. The molecule exists in many states at once, however briefly, exploring all possible routes before choosing the one that leads to vision. This quantum efficiency is why your eyes are so sensitive. Under ideal conditions, your retina can detect a single photon. One particle of light, arriving alone in the darkness, can trigger a cascade that reaches your brain as a signal. That's not just impressive biology, it's quantum biology, life operating at the edge of what physics allows. And here's what makes it even more remarkable. This process happens in the warm, wet, chaotic environment of your living eye. Quantum effects are famously fragile. They require isolation, cold temperatures, carefully controlled conditions. And yet, somehow, your body maintains quantum coherence long enough for this transformation to occur, billions of times per second, every time you look at anything at all. Think about that for a moment as you rest. The very act of seeing this screen, or the ceiling above you, or the darkness behind your eyelids, involves quantum superposition. You are, quite literally, a quantum observer. Not in some metaphorical sense, but in actual physical fact. The universe's strangest rules are playing out in your body right now, allowing you to witness the world. Scientists didn't always know this. For most of the 20th century, quantum mechanics and biology were kept in separate rooms. Quantum physics was for particles and waves, for things cold and isolated. Biology was for warmth and complexity, for things that moved and breathed and eventually died. The two fields barely spoke to each other. But in recent decades, that wall has begun to crumble. It started with questions that couldn't be answered by classical biology alone. How do certain chemical reactions happen faster than they should? How do birds navigate with such precision? How does photosynthesis work with nearly perfect efficiency? The answers, it turns out, were hiding in quantum mechanics all along. Your retina is just the beginning. As we'll discover tonight, quantum effects appear throughout biology, in places both obvious and deeply hidden. They show up in enzyme reactions, in the way plants harvest light, in the magnetic sense that guides migrating animals across continents. Life, it seems, learned to exploit quantum mechanics billions of years ago, long before humans even knew such a thing existed. And perhaps that makes sense. Evolution is an extraordinary tinkerer, working with whatever tools physics provides. If quantum tunneling makes a reaction faster, evolution will find it. If quantum coherence makes energy transfer more efficient, life will use it. There's no reason biology should limit itself to classical physics when quantum effects offer advantages. The real question isn't whether life uses quantum mechanics, it's how widespread these effects are, and whether we've only just begun to uncover them. So, as you settle in tonight, consider this. You are not separate from the quantum world. You are made of it. Every breath, every heartbeat, every flicker of thought may carry within it some whisper of quantum strangeness. You are both wave and particle, both observer and observed, both solid and somehow mysteriously not quite solid at all. Let that thought rest gently in your mind. We've only just begun. Birds can see magnetic fields, and the explanation might be quantum entanglement happening inside their eyes. It sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But there's serious evidence suggesting that robins, pigeons, and countless other migratory birds navigate using one of the strangest phenomena in all of physics. A phenomenon that Einstein famously mistrusted and called spooky action at a distance. Every autumn, billions of birds fly thousands of miles to their winter homes, and every spring they return. Arctic terns travel from pole to pole, over 40,000 miles in a single year. They cross oceans, deserts, mountain ranges, often at night or under cloudy skies when stars aren't visible. They don't get lost, they don't wander aimlessly. Somehow, they know which way to go. Scientists have known for decades that birds use Earth's magnetic field as a compass. That much is clear. But here's the puzzle. Earth's magnetic field is weak, incredibly weak compared to the chaotic electromagnetic noise of modern life, or even the simple thermal vibrations inside a living cell. How does a bird detect something so subtle while flying, while eating, while living? What kind of biological sensor could possibly be sensitive enough? The answer appears to involve a quantum effect called radical pair mechanism, and it happens in a protein called cryptochrome found in birds' eyes. Here's how it seems to work, as best we understand it. When blue light enters a bird's eye, it strikes cryptochrome molecules. This light excites electrons, and in that moment of excitation, two electrons become entangled. They form what's called a radical pair, two molecules, each with an unpaired electron, whose quantum states are mysteriously linked. Change one, and you instantly affect the other, regardless of distance. Now, here's where Earth's magnetic field comes in. That weak magnetic field influences the spin states of these entangled electrons. Depending on the field's orientation, the radical pair will either recombine quickly or stay separated longer. This difference, measured in nanoseconds, changes the chemical outcome of the reaction. And that chemical outcome sends a signal to the bird's brain. In other words, the bird literally sees the magnetic field. Not as a separate sense, like we might imagine a compass needle, but as a visual pattern overlaid on normal vision. Some researchers believe birds might perceive magnetic fields as areas of light or shadow, brighter in one direction, darker in another, creating a quantum compass painted directly onto their view of the world. This isn't proven beyond all doubt yet. Science rarely is, but the evidence keeps mounting. When researchers expose birds to radio frequencies that disrupt quantum coherence, the birds lose their navigational ability. When they block the blue light needed to activate cryptochrome, navigation fails. When they examine the chemistry closely, everything points toward a quantum mechanism. And if this is real, if birds truly navigate using quantum entanglement in their living eyes, then it raises a profound question. What else might be using quantum biology that we have not discovered yet? think about the precision required here. Entanglement is fragile. In laboratory experiments, quantum coherence typically lasts only tiny fractions of a second before the environment, warmth, vibration, stray electromagnetic fields, destroys it. This is called decoherence, and it's why quantum computers need to be cooled to nearly absolute zero and isolated from all outside interference. And yet, a bird's eye is warm, around 40 degrees Celsius. It's full of moving molecules, flowing blood, constant chemical reactions. It's about as far from an isolated quantum system as you can imagine. And still, somehow, quantum coherence persists long enough for entangled electrons to react to Earth's magnetic field and send meaningful information to the brain. How? That's one of the beautiful mysteries of quantum biology. Life seems to have evolved ways to protect quantum coherence even in warm, messy environments. Perhaps the protein structure of cryptochrome acts as a shield, isolating the radical pair from outside interference just long enough. Perhaps evolution discovered tricks that human engineers haven't thought of yet. Or perhaps quantum effects in living systems are more robust than we ever imagined. As you rest tonight, think about those birds outside your window. If there are any nearby, they're sleeping now too, heads tucked under wings, perched on branches or rooftops or telephone wires. But come morning, some of them might fly south, and if they do, they'll be navigating by quantum mechanics. 2 electrons, entangled and spinning, will guide them across hundreds or thousands of miles, pulling them toward destinations they've never seen but somehow know. It's worth pausing on that image. A small bird, weighing maybe an ounce, contains within its tiny skull a quantum sensor more sophisticated than anything humans have built. Evolution crafted this over millions of years long, before we had words like quantum or entanglement, long before we knew that particles could be connected across space in ways that seemed to violate everything. Common sense tells us about reality. The bird doesn't know it's performing quantum measurements. It simply knows which way feels right, which direction calls to it through a sense older than conscious thought. And in that feeling, in that directional pull, quantum mechanics and biology merge so seamlessly that separating them becomes impossible. This is what quantum biology reveals again and again. Life doesn't care about our categories. It doesn't respect the boundaries we draw between classical and quantum, between physics and chemistry and biology. Life uses whatever works. And if quantum entanglement helps a bird find its way home, then quantum entanglement becomes part of biology, becomes part of the warm, living world, becomes something happening right now in eyes and brains scattered across the sky. Let that image stay with you as your own eyes grow heavy. Somewhere out there, quantum mechanics is guiding a bird through darkness. And in your own eyes, quantum mechanics helped you see these very words. We are all, it seems, quantum creatures. Your sense of smell might be quantum mechanical. Every time you breathe in the scent of coffee, or roses, or rain on dry earth, your nose might be performing quantum measurements. It's a controversial idea, still debated, but the evidence is intriguing enough that we can't ignore it anymore. Here's the classical explanation of smell, the one most of us learned. Molecules float into your nose, bind to receptors, and their shape determines what smell you perceive. Like a lock and key. A molecule shaped like vanilla fits into vanilla receptors, and your brain interprets that as vanilla scent. Simple, mechanical, elegant. But there's a problem. Molecules with very similar shapes can smell completely different, and molecules with quite different shapes can smell nearly identical. The lock and key model doesn't explain this very well. It's like finding that differently shaped keys can open the same lock, while identical keys open different ones. Something else must be happening. The quantum theory of smell, proposed by biophysicist Luca Turin, suggests that your nose doesn't just detect molecular shape, it detects molecular vibrations. And it does this through quantum tunneling. Here's how it might work. When an odor molecule lands on a receptor in your nose, an electron needs to cross from one side of the receptor to the other. Normally, there's an energy barrier preventing this. The electron doesn't have enough energy to get across. It's like a ball at the bottom of a valley trying to roll over a hill. Classically impossible without enough energy. But quantum mechanically, Electrons can tunnel through barriers they shouldn't be able to cross. They don't go over the hill, they go through it, appearing on the other side without ever existing in the middle. This is quantum tunneling, one of the most counterintuitive predictions of quantum physics, and it's been verified in countless experiments. In your nose, the odor molecule acts like a bridge. Its specific vibrational frequency, the way its atoms jiggle and vibrate, matches the energy gap the electron needs to tunnel across. If the vibration matches, tunneling becomes much more likely. The electron crosses, a signal fires, and you smell something. Different molecules vibrate at different frequencies, like different musical notes. Your nose, in this theory, isn't reading shape so much as listening to vibration. It's performing a kind of quantum spectroscopy, measuring the vibrational signature of molecules and translating that into the rich, complex world of scent. This would explain why molecules with similar shapes smell different. They vibrate differently. And why molecules with different shapes can smell similar. They happen to vibrate at similar frequencies. It would explain why certain isotopes, atoms with the same chemistry but different masses, can smell slightly different despite being chemically identical. Mass affects vibration, and if your nose detects vibration, then isotopes should smell different. And according to some studies, they do. Not everyone accepts this theory. The debate continues. Some experiments support it, others don't, and the scientific community remains divided. Biology is messy, and smell is complicated by many factors. Genetic variation in receptors, differences in brain processing, even mood and expectation. Teasing out whether quantum tunneling plays a role requires extraordinarily careful experiments. But if it's true, if your nose really is a quantum detector, then every breath you take involves quantum mechanics. Right now, as you breathe slowly, relaxing into rest, molecules are drifting into your nose. Maybe you smell your pillow, or the faint scent of wherever you are. And if Turing is right, electrons are tunneling through protein receptors, their probability of crossing determined by quantum mechanical vibrations in molecules smaller than you can imagine. It's a strange thought. Smell feels so immediate, so simple. You don't think about physics when you smell bread baking or grass after rain, but beneath that simplicity, there might be quantum tunneling, wave functions collapsing, electrons appearing where they shouldn't be able to go. And here's something even more curious. If your nose uses quantum tunneling, then it's doing quantum measurements constantly, thousands of times per second, in the warm, wet environment of your nasal cavity. Again, we see life-maintaining quantum effects in conditions that should destroy them almost instantly. The receptors in your nose are proteins, large and floppy by quantum standards, surrounded by water, ions, constantly moving. And yet, if this theory is correct, they preserve quantum coherence just long enough for tunneling to occur, just long enough for a measurement to happen, before decoherence sets in, and the quantum world gives way to classical chemistry once more. Evolution, it seems, may have stumbled onto quantum mechanics billions of years ago, in the earliest organisms that needed to distinguish food from poison, prey from predator, safety from danger. Smell is ancient, one of the oldest senses. And if it's been quantum mechanical all along, then quantum biology isn't some recent innovation. It's been woven into the fabric of life from nearly the beginning. Let that settle in your mind as you rest. Your nose, right now, might be doing something that would seem impossible to classical physics. Electrons are vanishing on one side of a barrier and reappearing on the other, guided by the vibrations of invisible molecules, creating the sensation of smell through a process that exists half in the quantum world and half in the world of experience. You don't need to understand the mathematics. You don't need to picture wave functions or calculate probabilities. Just know that the boundary between the quantum world and the everyday world might be thinner than we ever thought. It might run right through your nose, through your eyes, through every living cell, blurring the line between the impossible and the actual. Quantum mechanics isn't locked away in laboratories. If these theories are correct, it's happening in you, right now, making possible the sensory richness of being alive. And that's worth marveling at, even as sleep begins to pull you under. Photosynthesis is nearly 100% efficient, and nobody fully knows how. Plants, algae, and certain bacteria perform what might be the most important chemical reaction on Earth. They capture sunlight and convert it into chemical energy. Without photosynthesis, there would be no oxygen, no food chains, no complex life. And this process that makes life possible appears to run on quantum mechanics. Here's what makes it so puzzling. When a photon strikes a chlorophyll molecule in a leaf, it excites an electron. That electron's energy needs to travel through a complex protein maze to reach a reaction center where photosynthesis actually happens. This journey involves hopping between dozens of molecules, navigating a chaotic molecular landscape. Classically, this should be inefficient. The energy should bounce around randomly, getting lost as heat, taking wrong turns, dissipating before it reaches its destination. But it doesn't. The energy reaches the reaction center almost every single time, in a few picoseconds, with virtually no loss. Photosynthesis operates at nearly 100% quantum efficiency, which shouldn't be possible if energy were just randomly hopping between molecules. So how does it work? The answer appears to be quantum coherence and something called quantum walks. When that photon excites the chlorophyll, the energy doesn't take a single path to the reaction center. Instead, it exists in a quantum superposition, taking all possible paths simultaneously. The energy is spread out as a wave function, exploring every route at once, interfering with itself, amplifying efficient paths, and canceling out inefficient ones. This is a quantum walk, and it's fundamentally different from a classical random walk. In a classical walk, you take one step, then another, trying different routes sequentially. In a quantum walk, you take all routes at once, and quantum interference guides you to the destination faster and more reliably than any classical algorithm could. Scientists first suspected quantum effects in photosynthesis when they measured something strange. They shot ultra-fast laser pulses at photosynthetic proteins and watched what happened. They expected to see energy hopping from molecule to molecule in discrete steps. Instead, they saw quantum beating patterns, oscillations that could only mean multiple pathways were interfering with each other quantum mechanically. The energy wasn't just bouncing around. It was wave-like, coherent, quantum. And this coherence lasted for hundreds of femtoseconds, sometimes longer, in a warm, jiggling protein at room temperature. That shouldn't happen. Quantum coherence should vanish almost instantly in such conditions. But somehow, the protein architecture protects it, just long enough for the energy to find its way home. Think about what this means. Every leaf, every blade of grass, every green thing growing in sunlight is performing quantum computations. Not metaphorically, but literally. The energy absorbed from light is solving an optimization problem. Find the fastest route to the reaction center, using quantum superposition and interference. This isn't happening in some carefully controlled laboratory. It's happening in forests and fields, in ocean plankton and garden vegetables, in environments full of thermal noise and molecular chaos. And it's been happening for billions of years, since the first photosynthetic organisms evolved in ancient oceans. Life discovered quantum optimization long before humans did. Evolution, through countless generations of trial and error, built protein structures that maintain quantum coherence in impossible conditions. The exact mechanisms are still being uncovered, but it seems that the protein scaffolding is carefully tuned, not too rigid, not too loose, to allow just enough molecular motion to protect quantum effects while preventing destructive interference. It's a balancing act of extraordinary precision. Too much vibration, and coherence is destroyed. Too little, and the system can't adapt or function at biological temperatures. Photosynthetic proteins sit right at the edge, in a regime where quantum and classical physics dance together. As you lie there, breathing slowly, consider that every breath you take contains oxygen produced by photosynthesis. That oxygen was liberated from water molecules using energy harvested from sunlight through quantum mechanical processes. The air filling your lungs right now exists because of quantum biology, and the food you ate today, whatever it was, ultimately came from plants or from animals that ate plants. The energy in that food was captured using quantum coherence, transferred through quantum walks, converted into chemical bonds through processes we're only beginning to understand. You are quite literally built from quantum mechanics, not just at the level of atoms. Everyone knows atoms are quantum, but at the level of biological function. The proteins in your cells might preserve quantum effects just like photosynthetic proteins do. The energy transfer chains in your own mitochondria, which power every cell in your body, might use similar quantum tricks. This is still frontier science. We don't have all the answers yet, but the evidence keeps accumulating that life isn't just compatible with quantum mechanics, it depends on it. That the warm, wet, noisy environment of living cells isn't hostile to quantum effects, but somehow protective of them, at least briefly, at least when it matters. Some physicists find this deeply unsettling. Quantum mechanics was supposed to be the physics of the very small, the very cold, the very isolated. It wasn't supposed to matter for living things. And yet, here we are, discovering that some of life's most essential processes might be impossible without quantum coherence. Others find it beautiful. Of course, life uses quantum mechanics. Why wouldn't it? Evolution has had billions of years to explore every possible physical mechanism. If quantum effects offer advantages, and they clearly do in terms of efficiency and speed, then natural selection will find them, preserve them, optimize them. The divide between quantum and classical, between the possible and the actual, between the strange and the familiar, might not be as clear as we once thought. Perhaps there's no hard boundary, just a gradual transition, a spectrum where quantum effects fade into classical behavior. And perhaps life lives right in that transition zone, exploiting quantum mechanics when useful while remaining stable enough to persist and reproduce. Let these thoughts wash over you gently. You don't need to grasp every detail. Just let yourself marvel quietly at the idea that every green leaf is a quantum device, that sunshine becomes sugar through a process that exists partly in superposition, that the entire biosphere runs on physics that Einstein himself found spooky and unsettling. Even plants, simple and silent, are quantum. Inside every cell in your body, there are tiny power plants called mitochondria, and they might be running on quantum tunneling. Right now, as you rest, trillions of mitochondria are producing the energy molecule ATP through a process called cellular respiration. And at the heart of this process lies something called the electron transport chain, a series of proteins that shuttle electrons along, using their energy to pump protons and ultimately create ATP. This electron transport chain is remarkably efficient, almost suspiciously so. Electrons move through these proteins faster than classical diffusion should allow. They hop between molecular sites separated by distances that should require more energy to cross. And yet somehow, they make these jumps reliably, billions of times per second, in every cell, keeping you alive. The answer appears to be quantum tunneling, the same phenomenon we discussed with smell. Electrons don't have enough energy to classically jump between sites in the transport chain. There are energy barriers in the way. But quantum mechanically, electrons can tunnel through these barriers, appearing on the other side without ever traversing the space in between. This isn't speculation. Scientists have measured tunneling rates in isolated proteins from the electron transport chain. They've shown that without quantum tunneling, the reactions would be far too slow to sustain life. Your metabolism, your energy, your ability to move and think and breathe, all of it depends on electrons doing something that shouldn't be possible according to classical physics. The distances involved are small, just a nanometer or two, but that's actually quite far by quantum standards. Tunneling probability drops exponentially with distance. And yet, the proteins seem to be arranged at precisely the right spacing to allow tunneling to occur frequently enough to be useful, but not so frequently that energy is wasted. This precision suggests optimization by evolution. Over billions of years, natural selection fine-tuned the structure of these proteins, adjusting distances and energy levels until quantum tunneling happened at just the right rate. Life learned to engineer quantum devices at the molecular scale long before humans knew such engineering was possible. And here's something that should make you pause. This is happening everywhere in your body, all the time. Every muscle contraction, every nerve impulse, every thought you think requires ATP, and ATP production requires quantum tunneling. You are quite literally powered by quantum mechanics. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's energy, even though it's only 2% of your body weight. That energy comes from mitochondria, which means your thoughts are powered by quantum tunneling. The very act of reading these words, of processing language, of drifting towards sleep, All of it runs on electrons appearing where they shouldn't be able to go. Some researchers go even further. They suggest that quantum effects might play a role not just in energy production, but in brain function itself. This is much more controversial, venturing into territory where solid evidence is scarce and speculation is tempting. But the questions are fascinating. Could quantum superposition play a role in consciousness? Could entanglement allow different parts of the brain to coordinate in ways we don't understand? Could the strange, unified nature of conscious experience, the fact that it feels like one coherent thing rather than millions of separate neural firings, have something to do with quantum coherence? These are big questions, maybe too big for anyone to answer definitively right now. Many neuroscientists are skeptical, and rightly so. The brain is warm and wet, constantly bombarded by thermal noise. Quantum coherence should vanish almost instantly, and most brain function can be explained perfectly well by classical neuroscience. Neurons firing, chemicals diffusing, electrical signals propagating. But then again, people once thought quantum effects couldn't survive in photosynthesis either, or in bird navigation, or in enzymes. And they were wrong. So maybe we should be cautious about declaring what's impossible in the brain, especially when we still understand so little about how consciousness actually works. For now, what we know for certain is that your metabolism is quantum mechanical. The energy flowing through your cells right now involves tunneling electrons, probability waves, particles behaving in ways that defy common sense. And that alone is remarkable enough. As you lie there, feeling your chest rise and fall with each breath, imagine the quantum processes happening inside you. Electrons tunneling through proteins in your mitochondria. Energy cascading down molecular steps. Protons being pumped against gradients, storing potential energy like water behind a dam. And finally, ATP synthase spinning like a tiny molecular motor, producing ATP molecules that will power everything else you do. This molecular machinery is ancient, conserved across billions of years of evolution. The same basic process happens in bacteria, in plants, in every animal. Quantum tunneling has been powering life since the very beginning, since the first organisms learned to harvest energy from their environment. You don't need to understand the biochemistry in detail. Just know that you are not just made of quantum mechanics at some abstract atomic level. You are powered by it, kept alive by it, made possible by electrons doing impossible things billions of times per second, in tiny molecular machines so sophisticated that we're still trying to understand how they work. And all of this is happening right now, in the darkness of your cells, in the quiet spaces too small to see, while you rest and drift and let your mind wander wherever it wants to go. Your body knows how to do all of this without your conscious effort. It's been doing it since before you were born, and it will keep doing it as long as you live. Quantum mechanics isn't just a theory about atoms and particles. It's the hidden engine of life itself, running constantly in the background, making everything possible. And tonight, as always, it's keeping you alive while you sleep. Enzymes are biological catalysts that speed up chemical reactions, sometimes by factors of millions or even trillions. They make life possible. Without enzymes, the reactions necessary for metabolism would happen far too slowly. You'd die before a single molecule of food could be digested. And increasingly, scientists are discovering that many enzymes achieve their remarkable speed through quantum tunneling. Classical chemistry says that for a reaction to occur, molecules need enough thermal energy to overcome an activation barrier. They have to climb over an energy hill. This takes time, and only a fraction of molecules have enough energy at any given moment. But quantum mechanically, particles can tunnel through the barrier instead of climbing over it, making reactions happen faster than classical physics would predict. Enzymes appear to exploit this. They're not just passive environments where reactions happen, they actively enhance quantum tunneling. The protein structure creates the right geometry, positions atoms at precisely the right distances, and even uses molecular vibrations to promote tunneling at just the right moments. One of the most studied examples is an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase, which helps metabolize alcohol in your liver. When researchers measured how this enzyme works, they found that a hydrogen atom tunnels between molecules during the reaction. They could tell it was tunneling rather than classical transfer because of how the reaction rate changed with temperature, and because substituting deuterium, a heavier isotope of hydrogen, dramatically slowed the reaction. This isotope effect is a quantum signature. If the hydrogen were moving classically, replacing it with deuterium shouldn't matter much. The atoms are chemically identical. But if it's tunneling, mass matters a lot. Heavier particles have shorter quantum wavelengths, making them less likely to tunnel through barriers. The fact that deuterium substitution slows the reaction so dramatically is strong evidence that tunneling is occurring. This has been found in enzyme after enzyme. Hydrogen transfer reactions, which are incredibly common in biology, often show quantum tunneling signatures. Carbon transfer reactions, though rarer, also sometimes exhibit quantum behavior. Life seems to use quantum tunneling wherever it provides an advantage. And here's the truly remarkable part. Enzymes don't just allow tunneling to happen by accident. They appear to be optimized for it. The protein structure creates a precise electric field that lowers the tunneling barrier. Specific amino acids are positioned to donate or accept charges at exactly the right moments. Even the protein's vibrations, its thermal jiggling, seem to be choreographed to bring atoms into tunneling distance at optimal times. This is called promoting vibrations, and it's one of the most elegant discoveries in quantum biology. The enzyme doesn't just hold still while tunneling happens. It moves, breathing and flexing in very specific ways that increase the probability of tunneling. It's as if the protein is dancing, and the quantum event happens right at the perfect beat. Evolution discovered this. No conscious designer planned these molecular dances. Natural selection simply preserved mutations that made reactions faster, and over millions of years, that led to protein structures that actively promote quantum tunneling. Life stumbled onto quantum optimization through blind trial and error, and the result is more sophisticated than most human engineering. Some enzymes are so fast, they're called perfect enzymes. They operate at the speed limit of molecular diffusion. The reaction happens essentially the instant the substrate molecule arrives. Classical chemistry cannot explain this. There isn't time for thermal fluctuations to overcome activation barriers, but quantum tunneling can explain it. The particle doesn't need to wait for the right thermal fluctuation, it can tunnel through immediately. As you rest tonight, these perfect enzymes are working inside you, breaking down molecules, building up others, maintaining the incredibly complex chemical equilibrium that is your metabolism. And many of them are doing it through quantum tunneling, through particles appearing on the other side of barriers they should never be able to cross. Your liver, processing whatever you consume today. Your muscles, repairing themselves after use. Your digestive system, extracting energy from food. Your immune system, fighting off invaders. All of these processes rely on enzymes, and many of those enzymes are quantum devices, operating at the boundary between the possible and the impossible. There's something almost poetic about this. Life is so fast, so dynamic, so responsive. Things happen in living systems at speeds that seem almost frantic compared to the timescales of geology or astronomy. You can react to a loud noise in milliseconds. Your immune system can recognize and respond to a pathogen in hours. Wounds heal in days. And underpinning all of this speed is quantum mechanics, allowing reactions to happen fast enough to keep pace with life's demands. Without quantum tunneling, you would be sluggish beyond imagining, if you could exist at all. Chemical reactions would crawl along at rates determined purely by thermal energy. You'd wait hours or days for simple metabolic processes to complete. Life as we know it would be impossible. But because particles can tunnel, because quantum mechanics allows shortcuts through energy barriers, life can be fast. Life can be responsive. Life can adapt and react and move through the world at speeds that make existence as we know it possible. And all of this happens without you knowing, without you thinking about it, in the quiet molecular darkness of your cells. Quantum mechanics is the invisible partner in every biological process, the hidden mechanism that makes the chemistry of life fast enough to support consciousness, movement, growth, repair. Let that thought rest with you. As you drift, as your breathing slows, as your body relaxes into sleep, quantum tunneling continues. Enzymes keep working. Particles keep tunneling. The impossible keeps happening, over and over, making possible the miracle of being alive. DNA mutations, the very engine of evolution, might involve quantum tunneling. Every time a cell divides, your DNA is copied, all 3 billion base pairs of it. And occasionally, rarely, a mistake happens. A wrong base gets inserted. A letter in the genetic code changes. This is mutation, and it's how evolution works. Without mutations, there would be no variation, no adaptation, no evolution. But how do these mutations actually occur? The classical explanation involves tautomeric shifts, rare forms of DNA bases where a hydrogen atom sits in the wrong position. If a base happens to be in its tautomeric form during DNA replication, it can pair with the wrong partner, leading to a mutation. But these tautomeric forms are rare, and transitions between them should be even rarer at body temperature. So where do the mutations come from? Quantum tunneling might provide the answer. The hydrogen atoms in DNA bases can tunnel from one position to another, temporarily creating a tautomeric form that mispairs. This tunneling happens spontaneously, randomly, driven by quantum probability rather than thermal energy. And because it's a quantum process, it can occur even when there isn't enough classical energy available. This idea was first proposed decades ago by physicist Per-Olof Lövden, but for a long time it remained speculative. Recently, computational studies have shown that quantum tunneling in DNA bases is not only possible, but might be common enough to account for a significant fraction of spontaneous mutations. The hydrogen bonds holding DNA base pairs together are exactly the kind of environment where tunneling is likely. Short distances, light particles, relatively low energy barriers. If this is true, then evolution itself has a quantum component. Every new adaptation, every species that ever evolved, every genetic difference that makes you unique, all of it might trace back, at least in part, to quantum tunneling events that happened spontaneously in the DNA of your ancestors. Think about what that means. The fact that humans exist, that consciousness exists, that you are lying here right now thinking about quantum biology, all of it might depend on quantum randomness in DNA. Evolution requires variation, and if quantum tunneling generates some of that variation, then quantum mechanics isn't just a detail of how life works. It's part of the creative force that made life diverse and complex. Some mutations are harmful, of course. Many do nothing at all. But occasionally, rarely, a mutation provides an advantage. It makes an organism slightly better at surviving or reproducing. That mutation spreads through the population, becomes fixed, and eventually becomes a normal part of the species. This is natural selection, and it operates on variation created, at least partly, by quantum events. Your genome contains millions of differences from other humans. Most of those differences are neutral or nearly so, but some affect your height, your susceptibility to disease, your metabolism, maybe even aspects of your personality. And somewhere in the deep past, those differences arose as mutations, possibly quantum tunneling events in the DNA of people who lived thousands of years ago. You are, in a very real sense, the product of quantum randomness accumulated over generations. Not just you personally, but all of us, all life. The tree of life, with its countless branches and species, grew from quantum seeds. Every innovation evolution ever produced, photosynthesis, flight, intelligence, began with mutations that might have been quantum mechanical in origin. This connects to something profound about quantum mechanics itself. At its core, quantum physics is probabilistic. You can't predict exactly when a particle will tunnel, only the probability that it will. This randomness isn't just ignorance, it's fundamental to reality. The universe at its deepest level involves irreducible chance. And now we're discovering that this quantum randomness might feed directly into evolution. The variation that natural selection acts upon might come partly from quantum events that are truly random, not determined by anything. If you could rewind time and replay evolution with the exact same starting conditions, quantum randomness would ensure a different outcome. Different mutations would occur. Different species would evolve. Maybe intelligent life would still emerge. Or maybe not. The quantum dice would roll differently. Some people find this unsettling. The idea that our existence depends on random quantum events, that evolution itself has an element of fundamental chance at its core. Others find it liberating, even beautiful. There's something poetic about quantum randomness being the source of biological creativity, about the universe's fundamental unpredictability being what makes life's diversity possible. As you lie there, consider your DNA. Right now, in the trillions of cells in your body, DNA is being copied. Most of those copies will be perfect, but occasionally, somewhere in your body, a mutation is occurring. A quantum tunneling event might be happening right now, moving a hydrogen atom to the wrong position, creating a tautomeric form, causing a mispairing. That mutation will almost certainly be harmless, lost when the cell dies, or simply having no effect. But it's happening nonetheless, quantum mechanics playing out in the most intimate parts of your biology. And if you have children, some of your DNA will be passed on, including any mutations that occurred in your germline cells. Those mutations, possibly quantum in origin, will become part of another person. They'll spread or vanish depending on chance and natural selection. And in that way, quantum events happening in your body right now might echo forward through generations, becoming part of the vast ongoing experiment that is evolution. Life and quantum mechanics aren't separate. They're woven together so tightly that unraveling them is impossible. Quantum effects don't just enable life. They shape it, drive it forward, create the variation upon which all evolution depends. Let that thought drift through your mind as you relax. You are a quantum being in more ways than one, made possible by quantum mechanics, powered by it, and carrying within you the quantum variations that make you unique. Consciousness might have quantum aspects, though this is where science becomes more uncertain and speculation more tempting. It's worth treading carefully here, because the idea of quantum consciousness has been both seriously investigated and wildly oversold. But there are legitimate questions worth considering, even if we don't have answers yet. The puzzle of consciousness is profound. How does subjective experience arise from objective matter? How does the firing of neurons in your brain create the feeling of what it's like to be you? Why is there something it feels like to see red, to hear music, to feel sadness? This is called the hard problem of consciousness, and nobody has solved it. Some scientists, notably Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, have proposed that quantum mechanics might be involved. Their theory centers on structures inside neurons called microtubules, tiny tubes made of proteins that help maintain cell structure and transport materials. Penrose and Hameroff suggest that quantum computations occur in these microtubules, and that consciousness emerges from orchestrated quantum collapse events. The idea is controversial, to put it mildly. Most neuroscientists are skeptical. The brain is too warm, too wet, too noisy for quantum coherence to survive. Decoherence should happen almost instantly. And besides, we can explain many aspects of consciousness using classical neuroscience. Networks of neurons, patterns of activity, chemical signals. Why invoke quantum mechanics at all? But the theory persists, partly because some predictions have held up. Hameroff and Penrose predicted that anesthetics work by disrupting quantum processes in microtubules. Some experimental work has suggested they might be right, though the evidence is far from conclusive. And recent studies have shown that quantum effects can persist in biological systems longer than previously thought, raising the possibility, however slight, that they might survive in neurons. The real question is whether quantum mechanics adds anything necessary to our understanding of consciousness. Can consciousness be explained purely through classical neuroscience? Or is there something about subjective experience that requires quantum physics? Most researchers lean toward classical explanations, but a small group continues to explore quantum possibilities. One argument in favor of quantum consciousness is the unity of conscious experience. When you look at a scene, you see it as one coherent whole, not as millions of separate bits of information processed by different neurons. This binding problem, how the brain creates unified experience from distributed processing, is still not fully understood. Could quantum entanglement play a role, linking different parts of the brain in ways that classical communication cannot? It's possible, but there's no solid evidence yet. It remains in the realm of hypothesis, interesting to think about, but not proven. And that's fine. Not every question has an answer yet, and it's okay to sit with uncertainty. What we can say is that your brain definitely uses quantum mechanics at the metabolic level. The ATP powering your neurons comes from quantum tunneling in mitochondria. The chemical reactions in your synapses might involve quantum effects. Ion channels in your neurons might use quantum mechanisms to control the flow of charged particles. These aren't speculative, they're increasingly well established. So quantum mechanics is definitely involved in brain function, just maybe not in the exotic ways that quantum consciousness theories propose. Your thoughts are powered by quantum effects, even if consciousness itself might not require them. As you lie here, your brain is quieting. Neural activity is slowing. You're approaching sleep, that mysterious state where consciousness fades but doesn't disappear entirely. Dreams prove that. What happens to quantum effects during sleep? Do they continue unchanged, or does something shift? We don't know. Sleep itself is still not fully understood, another mystery in the long list of things we're still figuring out about the brain. Maybe someday we'll understand consciousness fully, whether it involves quantum mechanics or not. Maybe we'll discover that it's entirely classical, explainable through neurons and chemicals and electrical patterns. Or maybe we'll find that quantum effects are essential, that you can't have consciousness without them. Or maybe the truth will be somewhere in between. Quantum mechanics playing a supporting role, but not the starring one. For now, it's enough to know that your brain is extraordinary, quantum or not. It's processing these words, creating meaning from shapes on a screen or sounds in the air, constructing a model of reality from sensory data, generating thoughts and feelings, and the mysterious sense of being you. That's remarkable regardless of whether quantum mechanics is involved in consciousness itself. So rest easy. Whether your consciousness is quantum, or classical, or some mixture of both, it's real. Your experience is valid. Your thoughts matter. And as you drift towards sleep, your brain will keep working in the background, processing, consolidating, dreaming, doing whatever it is brains do when consciousness fades. The mystery remains. And perhaps that's okay. Perhaps some mysteries are worth living with, worth wondering about, without needing immediate answers. Consciousness is one of those mysteries, the deepest one, really, because it's the lens through which we experience everything else. Sleep gently, dream quietly, and let the questions rest for now. Quantum biology raises philosophical questions about the nature of life itself. If living systems exploit quantum mechanics, if they maintain quantum coherence in warm environments, if they're doing quantum computations to navigate or photosynthesize or catalyze reactions, what does that mean for how we understand biology? What does it mean for how we understand ourselves? For most of the 20th century, biology and physics were seen as separate domains. Physics dealt with fundamental laws, the behavior of particles and forces. Biology dealt with messiness, with the complex emergent phenomena of living things. And quantum mechanics was firmly in the physics camp, irrelevant to biology, except in the most abstract sense that everything is quantum at the atomic level. But quantum biology is eroding that boundary. It's showing that quantum mechanics isn't just a substrate upon which biology happens. It's an active participant. Life doesn't just tolerate quantum effects. It uses them, optimizes for them, depends on them. This raises a question. What is life? The classical view is that life is complex chemistry, nothing more and nothing less. Give the right molecules, the right conditions, and life emerges through ordinary chemical reactions and physical processes. Quantum mechanics might govern those reactions at the atomic level, but it's not doing anything special. Life is classical complexity built on quantum foundations, but the quantum part isn't particularly important. Quantum biology suggests otherwise. Maybe life is not just complex chemistry, but quantum complex chemistry. Maybe the ability to maintain quantum coherence in warm, noisy environments is actually one of the defining features of living systems. Maybe life is unique precisely because it operates at the boundary between quantum and classical, exploiting both regimes in ways that non-living matter cannot. If that's true, then creating artificial life might be harder than we thought. It's not enough to put the right molecules together in the right conditions. You'd also need to create structures that protect quantum coherence, that promote quantum tunneling, that harness quantum effects for computational or energetic advantages. You'd need to engineer not just chemistry, but quantum chemistry. And we're only beginning to understand how nature does that. This has implications for the search for extraterrestrial life too. If life inherently involves quantum biology, then it might require very specific conditions, not just liquid water and energy, but also molecular environments that can support quantum coherence. Maybe life is rarer than we hope, possible only in narrow ranges of temperature and chemical composition where quantum effects can be maintained. Or maybe not. Maybe quantum effects are more robust than we realize, and life can exploit them in many different environments. Maybe evolution will always find ways to use quantum mechanics, regardless of the details. We simply don't know yet. The discovery of quantum biology is too recent, our understanding too incomplete. But the questions are fascinating. They force us to reconsider what we mean by life, what's essential and what's incidental. They blur the line between physics and biology, suggesting that these disciplines aren't separate but intertwined at the deepest level. And they raise questions about consciousness again, from a different angle. If life exploits quantum mechanics, and if consciousness emerges from life, then maybe consciousness has quantum aspects not because of anything special about brains, but simply because all of biology is quantum mechanical to some degree. Maybe quantum effects in consciousness, if they exist, aren't exotic. They're just biology being biology. Or maybe consciousness doesn't need quantum mechanics at all. Maybe it's the one thing that's purely classical, emerging from complex but fundamentally ordinary neural activity. The fact that your metabolism is quantum mechanical doesn't mean your thoughts are. Those are separate questions. What seems clear is that we can't understand life fully without understanding its quantum aspects. We can't separate the quantum from the biological anymore. They're too entangled, if you'll forgive the pun. Life is quantum mechanical in essential ways, not just incidental ones. And that changes how we think about biology, how we study it, how we try to create or find it elsewhere in the universe. As you rest, you're an example of this quantum biological unity. You're not a machine made of classical parts. You're a quantum system that has learned to maintain coherence in impossible conditions, to exploit tunneling and superposition and entanglement for metabolic and sensory and possibly even cognitive purposes. You're a bridge between the quantum world and the classical one, existing in both simultaneously. That's not a metaphor. That's physics. That's biology. That's what you are. A living demonstration that quantum mechanics and warm, wet complexity can coexist, can cooperate, can create something as remarkable as a conscious being lying in bed, thinking about quantum biology. The boundary between you and the quantum world isn't distant. It's not mediated by cold laboratories and careful isolation. The boundary runs through you. You are the boundary. And in being alive, you're proving every moment that quantum mechanics belongs not just in textbooks, but in the breathing, thinking, feeling reality of life itself. Let that thought settle as you drift. You're not separate from the strange quantum realm. You're made of it. You're living proof that the impossible is possible, that particles can tunnel, that coherence can survive, that life can bloom from quantum seeds. There's a bird called the European robin, and every autumn it migrates from Scandinavia to southern Europe and North Africa. The journey is thousands of kilometers, much of it flown at night over seas and mountains. And the robin navigates using a quantum compass in its eyes that can detect Earth's magnetic field through entangled electrons. We talked earlier about how this works in general, but let's go deeper into what the bird actually experiences. Because this isn't just a neat scientific fact, it's a window into a completely alien sensory world that we can barely imagine. When the robin looks around, it doesn't just see colors and shapes like we do. It sees the magnetic field as a visual pattern, possibly as differences in brightness or color intensity depending on which direction it faces. Some researchers believe birds might see the magnetic field as a kind of augmented reality overlay on their normal vision. Patterns of light and shadow that shift as they turn their head, always pointing toward magnetic north. Imagine what that would be like. Every time you turned your head, a directional signal would appear in your vision, not pointing to anything you could see, but to something invisible, the planet's magnetic field. It would be like having a built-in GPS, except it's not digital, it's quantum mechanical, running on entangled electrons and protein molecules in your retinas. The robin doesn't know it's using quantum mechanics, of course. It doesn't understand entanglement or spin states or radical pair reactions. It just knows that when it turns toward a certain direction, something in its vision feels right, feels like home, feels like the way it should fly. This is instinct refined by millions of years of evolution. Quantum mechanics wrapped in behavior so seamless, the bird never questions it. And here's something remarkable. The robin's quantum compass is sensitive to very weak radio frequencies, the kind emitted by electronic devices. Researchers have found that when exposed to urban electromagnetic noise, robins lose their ability to navigate. The quantum coherence in their eyes gets disrupted by radio interference, and suddenly they can't find north anymore. This has real consequences. As humans fill the world with radio waves, cell phones, Wi-Fi, broadcast signals, we're creating a kind of electromagnetic fog that migratory birds must navigate through. Some species may be affected more than others. Some might adapt. But for now, we're inadvertently jamming the quantum compasses of countless birds, making their migrations more difficult without even realizing we're doing it. It's a strange thought. Our technology is disrupting quantum biology. We're colliding two frontier sciences, quantum mechanics in living systems and human electronics, and the birds are caught in the middle, trying to use their ancient quantum senses in a world full of modern electromagnetic noise. But when the robin gets away from cities, out into dark countryside where radio interference fades, its quantum compass works perfectly. Entangled electrons respond to Earth's subtle magnetic field. Chemical reactions occur in nanoseconds. Signals fire to the brain. And the bird knows which way to fly, guided by quantum mechanics across thousands of kilometers, arriving at destinations it has never seen before. How does the bird know where to go, not just which direction? That's still mysterious. The magnetic compass tells it north and south, but how does it know when to stop? How does it recognize home? Some combination of landmarks, star patterns, perhaps even smell, all integrated with the magnetic sense into a navigational system we're only beginning to understand. Young birds making their first migration have never seen their destination, yet they fly there successfully. The route is encoded somehow, perhaps genetically, perhaps learned from parents, perhaps some combination. But the quantum compass is essential. Without it, the journey would be impossible. Think about that level of sophistication. A small bird, weighing maybe 20 grams, contains in its skull a quantum sensor more accurate than anything humans have built. It maintains quantum coherence in living tissue at body temperature in the presence of constant molecular noise. And it does this reliably enough to stake its life on it, flying thousands of kilometers guided by entangled electrons. We built quantum computers by isolating qubits at near absolute zero in vacuum chambers with careful magnetic shielding. The robin builds a quantum sensor that works in its warm, living eye, while it's flying through variable magnetic fields and electromagnetic interference. Evolution discovered tricks we haven't figured out yet. As you rest tonight, consider that outside, perhaps not far away, there are birds sleeping too. And in their eyes, even while they sleep, cryptochrome proteins are ready. When dawn comes and blue light enters their eyes, electrons will become entangled. Quantum superposition will occur, and the birds will see something humans cannot. The invisible geometry of Earth as magnetic field made visible through quantum mechanics. They'll stretch their wings, orient themselves using their quantum compass, and fly. And in that flight, in that navigation, quantum mechanics and biology will merge so completely that trying to separate them becomes meaningless. The robin is not using quantum mechanics. The robin is quantum mechanics, expressed as biology, shaped by evolution, flying through the sky. Proteins fold into specific shapes, and the process might involve quantum effects. This sounds mundane until you realize that protein folding is one of the most computationally difficult problems in all of science. A protein is a long chain of amino acids, and depending on the sequence, it will fold into a specific three-dimensional structure. That structure determines what the protein does, whether it's an enzyme, or a structural component, or a receptor, or something else. The problem is that there are astronomical numbers of possible shapes a protein could fold into. For a typical protein with a few hundred amino acids, the number of possible configurations is more than the number of atoms in the universe. If the protein tried each configuration randomly, it would take longer than the age of the universe to find the right one. And yet proteins fold correctly in milliseconds, reliably every time. This is called Levinthal's paradox, named after the biophysicist who first articulated it. How do proteins find the correct fold so quickly when the search space is so vast? The classical answer involves folding pathways. The protein doesn't search randomly, but follows certain routes that guide it toward the correct structure, like water flowing downhill along the path of least resistance. But recent research suggests quantum effects might play a role. Quantum tunneling could allow parts of the protein to cross energy barriers during folding, reaching configurations that would be inaccessible classically. Quantum coherence might allow the protein to explore multiple folding paths simultaneously, using quantum interference to amplify correct routes and suppress incorrect ones. This is still speculative, less well established than quantum effects in photosynthesis or bird navigation. But the hints are intriguing. Simulations show that quantum tunneling can significantly speed up protein folding in certain scenarios. And the fact that proteins fold so reliably, despite the computational difficulty, suggests that something beyond classical chemistry might be happening. If quantum mechanics is involved in protein folding, the implications are enormous. Every protein in your body had to fold correctly to function. Your muscles, your immune system, your brain, all made of proteins that folded into precise shapes. If any significant fraction of proteins folded incorrectly, you'd be very sick or dead. Misfolded proteins cause diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and prion diseases. So protein folding has to be reliable. Evolution would not tolerate a process that frequently failed. And if quantum mechanics makes folding more reliable or faster, then evolution would have optimized for it, building molecular environments that enhance quantum effects. Right now, in your cells, proteins are being synthesized and folded. Ribosomes are reading messenger RNA and linking amino acids together in chains. As each chain emerges from the ribosome, it begins to fold, sometimes with the help of other proteins called chaperones. And in milliseconds, the protein reaches its final shape, ready to perform whatever function it was designed for. If quantum mechanics is involved, then quantum tunneling events are happening as these proteins fold. Parts of the chain are tunneling through energy barriers, finding configurations that would take much longer to reach classically. The protein is exploring a quantum landscape, a superposition of possible shapes, before collapsing into the one correct fold. This isn't proven yet. It remains an active area of research, with some scientists convinced and others skeptical. But the possibility is fascinating, because it would mean that quantum mechanics is involved not just in specific functions like photosynthesis or navigation, but in the most fundamental processes of molecular biology, the very formation of functional proteins. Every enzyme we discussed earlier, every protein in the electron transport chain, every cryptochrome in a bird's eye, all of them had to fold correctly first. And if quantum mechanics helps with folding, then quantum effects are even more fundamental to biology than we thought. Let this thought rest with you as you relax. Your body is made of proteins, tens of thousands of different kinds, each folded into a precise shape. Those shapes determine everything about you, from the color of your eyes to the way your brain processes information. And if quantum mechanics played a role in creating those shapes, then you are quantum mechanical at a level even deeper than metabolism or sensation. You are shaped by quantum effects, built by them, defined by them. Not just powered by quantum mechanics, but constructed through quantum processes, folded into existence by quantum rules, operating in the warm, crowded environment of living cells. It's a beautiful thought, really, that the structure of your body might depend on quantum mechanics, that you couldn't exist in your current form without tunneling and coherence and all the strange quantum phenomena that make the impossible routine. As you drift toward sleep, your cells continue working. Proteins continue folding. Quantum mechanics continues operating in the background, invisible but essential, shaping the molecules that shape you. Let's talk about quantum entanglement more deeply, because it's so strange that even physicists who work with it daily find it unsettling. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, and he didn't mean that as a compliment. He thought it revealed a flaw in quantum mechanics, that the theory must be incomplete. But experiments have proven him wrong. Entanglement is real, and it's one of the most counterintuitive aspects of quantum physics. When two particles become entangled, their quantum states become correlated in a way that has no classical analog. Measure one particle's spin, and you instantly know the other's spin, regardless of the distance between them. Change one particle's state, and the other state changes correspondingly, faster than light could travel between them. This doesn't allow faster than light communication. The correlations can only be seen in retrospect after comparing measurements. But it does mean that entangled particles aren't truly separate. They're parts of a single quantum system, connected in a way that transcends space. The universe, at the quantum level, is non-local. Things that seem separate aren't. Not really. And if birds use entanglement for navigation, that means biological systems are exploiting this non-locality. Entangled electrons in a bird's eye are connected in a way that defies classical intuition. And that connection is sensitive to Earth's magnetic field, creating the directional information the bird needs. The strangeness goes deeper. When a quantum system becomes entangled with its environment, decoherence occurs. The quantum behavior vanishes, replaced by classical statistics. This is why quantum effects seem absent from everyday life. Everything is constantly becoming entangled with everything else, destroying coherence, forcing systems into classical behavior. But somehow, biology preserves entanglement and coherence long enough to use them. The proteins in a bird's eye, in a photosynthetic reaction center, in your mitochondria, they're all managing to isolate quantum processes from the environment just enough to prevent instant decoherence while still operating at biological temperatures. How they do this is still being investigated. Part of the answer seems to be structure. The protein scaffolding creates barriers that shield quantum processes from outside noise. Part might be motion. Certain types of molecular vibrations can actually protect quantum coherence rather than destroy it, a counterintuitive discovery that surprised researchers. And part might be that quantum effects in biology are more robust than we thought. Perhaps the boundary between quantum and classical isn't as sharp as textbooks suggest. Perhaps there's a gradual transition, and biology operates right in that transition zone where quantum effects are still strong enough to be useful, but not so fragile that they vanish instantly. Think about what this means for your understanding of reality. The world seems solid and definite. Objects have specific locations and properties. Cause and effect flow forward in time. Everything feels classical and comprehensible. But underneath, at the scale of molecules and atoms, reality is nothing like that. Particles exist in superposition, in multiple states simultaneously. Entangled particles share correlations that transcend space. The act of measurement creates reality rather than merely revealing it. And somehow, life exists right at the boundary, with one foot in the quantum world and one in the classical. You are, quite literally, a quantum classical hybrid. Large-scale structures like your body and brain are classical. You have a definite location. You move through space normally. You experience time flowing forward. But at the molecular level, quantum effects are everywhere. Tunneling in your metabolism, possibly superposition in photoreceptors, maybe even entanglement in cryptochrome proteins if you had them in your eyes like birds do. This dual nature is part of what makes life so remarkable. Life exists at the perfect scale to exploit both quantum and classical physics. Small enough that quantum effects matter, large enough to maintain stability and persistence. Too small, and you'd be purely quantum, unable to maintain the complex structures needed for biology. Too large, and quantum effects would be drowned out by classical behavior. But at the scale of cells and proteins, both regimes are accessible. Evolution could tinker with both quantum and classical mechanisms, mixing and matching, optimizing across both domains. The result is the extraordinary sophistication of living systems, using whatever physics provides to survive and reproduce. As you lie there, you're experiencing both realities. Your consciousness, your sense of self, your awareness. These feel classical and continuous. But supporting them, enabling them, making them possible are countless quantum processes. You couldn't be conscious without quantum tunneling in your neurons' mitochondria. You might not be able to see without quantum effects in your retinas. Your very structure depends on quantum mechanics and protein folding. The boundary between quantum and classical runs through you. And maybe that's what life is, the integration of both, the ability to maintain quantum coherence in classical structures, the exploitation of quantum effects for classical purposes. Let that image rest in your mind. You're not just a classical being with some quantum physics at the atomic level. You're a true quantum classical hybrid, operating simultaneously in both realms, using both sets of rules, existing at the boundary where the strange becomes real and the impossible becomes routine. Magnetoreception, the ability to sense magnetic fields, isn't limited to birds. Many animals have it. Sea turtles use Earth's magnetic field to navigate across oceans, returning to the beaches where they were born to lay their eggs. Salmon use it to find their home streams after years at sea. Monarch butterflies migrate thousands of miles using magnetic navigation. Even some bacteria have magnetosomes, tiny crystals of magnetite that align with magnetic fields, helping them orient in sediments. This is more widespread than most people realize. Magnetic navigation might be one of the most common sensory abilities in the animal kingdom, present in insects, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and possibly mammals. And if the radical pair mechanism is correct, many of these animals are using quantum entanglement for navigation, making quantum biology not some rare exception, but a fundamental feature of sensory systems across the tree of life. Think about sea turtles. Hatchlings emerge from eggs buried in sand, scramble to the ocean, and swim away from shore. They spend years drifting in ocean currents, traveling thousands of miles, growing from tiny hatchlings into massive adults. And then, decades later, they return to the same beach where they were born. Not just the same region, the same specific beach, sometimes accurate to within a few hundred meters. How? They've never been there as adults. They have no visual memory of the beach. They can't smell it from thousands of miles away. But they can sense Earth's magnetic field, and that field varies subtly from place to place. Different locations have slightly different field intensities and inclinations. The turtles seem to have a magnetic map, learned during their first journey to the sea, allowing them to navigate back with remarkable precision. If this involves quantum entanglement, then baby sea turtles crawling across sand are already using quantum mechanics. Their brains are processing quantum information from entangled electrons in their eyes, building a magnetic map that will last their entire lives. Quantum biology isn't just for specialized cases. It's woven into the life cycles of creatures all over the planet. Monarch butterflies present another fascinating case. These delicate insects migrate from Canada and the United States to central Mexico, a journey of up to 3,000 miles. No individual butterfly makes the full round trip. It takes multiple generations. Butterflies that leave Mexico in spring lay eggs on milkweed plants as they travel north. Those butterflies die, and their offspring continue north. This happens over several generations through spring and summer. Then, in autumn, something remarkable happens. A special generation is born, the super generation. These butterflies live much longer than their parents and have a migratory drive their parents lacked. They fly south, thousands of miles, to forests in Mexico that they've never seen, that their parents never saw, that their grandparents never saw. And they find them, gathering in massive clusters on specific trees, the same trees used by monarchs for generations. How do they know where to go? Magnetic navigation appears to be part of the answer. The butterflies sense Earth's magnetic field, using it as a compass to fly south. Combined with the position of the sun, this gives them enough information to navigate to Mexico. And if the radical pair mechanism is involved, these fragile butterflies are using quantum entanglement to guide their journey. Quantum effects in their tiny brains determining the direction of their flight. It's humbling, really. We humans needed thousands of years to develop magnetic compasses, needed GPS satellites and atomic clocks to navigate with precision. And all along, countless species were doing it naturally, using quantum mechanics in their sensory systems, refined by evolution over millions of years. Some researchers suspect that even humans might have weak magnetoreception. There's cryptochrome in human retinas, the same protein birds use for quantum navigation. Most studies suggest we can't consciously sense magnetic fields, but a few experiments have found subtle responses to magnetic field changes in human brainwaves. Perhaps we have the hardware for magnetoreception, but lack the software, the neural circuits that would allow us to consciously access the information. Or perhaps it operates subconsciously. Some people claim to have a sense of direction that doesn't depend on landmarks or GPS. They just feel which way is north. This is usually dismissed as learned intuition, unconscious integration of subtle environmental cues. But could some people be accessing weak magnetic information from cryptochrome in their retinas? It's speculative, but not impossible. As you rest, perhaps you can imagine what it would be like to sense magnetic fields directly. To turn your head and feel a directional pull, subtle but unmistakable. To always know which way is north without thinking about it. To navigate not by landmarks, but by the invisible geometry of Earth's magnetic field. For most of the animal kingdom, this isn't imagination, it's reality. Quantum mechanics gives them a sense we lack, a window into an aspect of the environment we can only detect with instruments. They're living in a richer sensory world than we are, perceiving fields and forces we're blind to. And they've been doing it for millions of years, long before humans existed. Quantum biology isn't new. It's ancient, fundamental, woven into the sensory systems of countless species. We're just now discovering what evolution figured out long ago. That quantum mechanics can be useful, that life can harness it, that the strange physics of the quantum world belongs in the warm, living world just as much as it belongs in laboratories. Let that expand your sense of what's possible. The world is stranger than it appears. Animals are using quantum mechanics to navigate in ways we're only beginning to understand. And you, lying here, are part of that quantum biological world, even if you can't sense magnetic fields yourself. Photosynthesis converts sunlight into chemical energy with nearly perfect efficiency, and we've discussed the quantum effects involved. But let's go deeper into what this means for the planet, for the biosphere, for the very possibility of complex life. Because photosynthesis isn't just a neat quantum trick, it's the foundation of almost all life on Earth. Every breath you take contains oxygen produced by photosynthesis. The food you eat, whether plants or animals that ate plants, contains energy captured from sunlight by photosynthesis. The fossil fuels that power civilization are ancient photosynthesis, sunlight stored in organic matter millions of years ago. Nearly all the energy in the biosphere traces back to photosynthesis, which means it traces back to quantum biology. Think about the scale. Every year, photosynthetic organisms capture about 130 terawatts of solar energy. That's more than 6 times all human energy consumption. They use this energy to build biomass, fixing carbon from the atmosphere into organic compounds. This process removes about 120 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere annually, equal to the amount released by respiration and decomposition, maintaining a balance that makes Earth habitable. Without photosynthesis, atmospheric oxygen would gradually disappear, consumed by oxidation reactions and not replaced. Complex life, which depends on oxygen for metabolism, would go extinct. The planet would return to something like its early state, an atmosphere rich in carbon dioxide and nitrogen, oceans teeming with anaerobic bacteria, but no plants, no animals, no consciousness looking up at stars. Photosynthesis prevents this, and it does so using quantum mechanics. Quantum coherence and quantum walks allow photosynthetic organisms to capture solar energy with extraordinary efficiency, wasting almost nothing, converting photons into chemical bonds reliably and rapidly. This efficiency is why photosynthesis can support such an enormous biosphere. If the process were less efficient, plants would need more light, growth would be slower, less biomass could be supported. But because photosynthesis is nearly perfect, thanks to quantum effects, plants can thrive even in relatively low light conditions. Forests can grow thick and dense, supporting complex ecosystems. Oceans can bloom with phytoplankton, feeding food chains that support everything from krill to whales. The quantum efficiency of photosynthesis is directly responsible for the abundance and diversity of life on Earth. Consider a forest. Trees stretching upward, leaves forming canopy layers that capture sunlight at different heights. Under the canopy, smaller plants and mosses grow in the filtered light that penetrates. Every leaf is a quantum device. Every chloroplast is performing quantum computations. Every photosystem is using quantum coherence to channel energy with minimal loss. A single large tree might have hundreds of thousands of leaves, each containing millions of chloroplasts, each chloroplast performing photosynthesis billions of times per second. The scale is staggering, and all of it depends on quantum mechanics operating reliably in warm, living tissue. This has been happening for billions of years. Photosynthesis evolved over 3 billion years ago in ancient bacteria that learned to capture sunlight. Cyanobacteria refined the process, developing oxygen-producing photosynthesis that transformed the planet's atmosphere. Plants inherited photosynthesis from cyanobacteria through endosymbiosis, ancient cyanobacteria that were engulfed by early plant cells and became chloroplasts, the green organelles where photosynthesis occurs. So the quantum biological machinery in modern plants is ancient, refined over billions of years, tested across countless environments and evolutionary pressures. If there were a better way to do photosynthesis, evolution would have found it. The fact that plants still use quantum coherence suggests it's not just useful, but optimal, the best solution to the problem of capturing solar energy efficiently. As you breathe slowly, relaxing, consider that the oxygen entering your lungs was liberated from water molecules through quantum mechanical processes. Photons from the sun excited electrons in chlorophyll. Quantum coherence guided energy to reaction centers, and ultimately water molecules were split, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. That oxygen traveled from a leaf to the atmosphere, carried by winds and currents, until eventually you breathed it in. It's now entering your bloodstream, binding to hemoglobin, being transported to cells throughout your body, where it will participate in respiration, the reverse of photosynthesis, releasing energy that will power everything you do. The whole cycle, photosynthesis producing oxygen, respiration consuming it, plants fixing carbon, animals releasing it, is mediated by quantum biology at multiple points. Quantum effects in photosynthesis capture energy. Quantum tunneling in your metabolism releases it. The circle closes, energy and matter cycling through the biosphere. Quantum mechanics enabling every step. Without quantum biology, this cycle wouldn't work efficiently enough to support complex life. We'd be left with primitive organisms scraping by on inefficient energy capture, never evolving the complexity needed for forests and oceans and ecosystems, never reaching the point where consciousness could emerge and look back at its quantum origins. But quantum biology made it possible. And here we are, the products of billions of years of quantum-mediated evolution, breathing oxygen from quantum photosynthesis, powered by quantum metabolism, thinking thoughts that might themselves involve quantum effects. Let that vast interconnection wash over you as you rest. You're not separate from the biosphere. You're woven into it, dependent on it, made possible by the same quantum processes that make plants grow and oxygen flow and energy cycle through the living world. There's a field called quantum biomimetics, where engineers study quantum biological systems and try to replicate them in human technology. If birds can maintain quantum coherence in their eyes, maybe we can build quantum sensors that work at room temperature. If plants can perform quantum computations in photosynthesis, maybe we can design quantum computers that don't need extreme cooling. If enzymes can promote quantum tunneling efficiently, maybe we can create catalysts that speed up industrial reactions. The potential is enormous. Quantum technologies usually require extreme conditions, temperatures near absolute zero, vacuum chambers, careful magnetic shielding. This makes them expensive, fragile, and difficult to deploy outside laboratories. But if we could create quantum devices that work at room temperature like biological systems do, we could revolutionize computing, sensing, energy capture, and chemical processing. Some progress has been made. Researchers have created artificial photosynthetic systems inspired by plants, though none yet match the efficiency of the real thing. Engineers have built magnetic sensors based on the radical pair mechanism, attempting to replicate bird navigation, though again, biological systems remain superior. Quantum computers inspired by photosynthesis have been proposed, using quantum walks for computation rather than traditional logic gates. But mostly, we're still learning. Biology is far ahead of engineering when it comes to quantum devices at room temperature. Evolution had billions of years and countless experiments to refine these systems. We've had decades and limited resources. The gap is still wide. One of the challenges is that we don't fully understand how biology maintains quantum coherence. We know it happens, we've measured it, but the detailed mechanisms remain partially mysterious. How exactly does the protein structure protect quantum states from environmental noise? What role do molecular vibrations play? How is energy dissipation managed? These are active research questions. Another challenge is that biological systems are optimized for very specific tasks. A bird's cryptochrome is perfect for detecting magnetic fields, but useless for general quantum computing. Photosynthetic proteins are ideal for light harvesting, but wouldn't work for quantum communication. We can't just copy biological designs directly. We need to understand the principles and adapt them to human purposes. But the inspiration is valuable. Biology shows us that quantum devices working at room temperature are possible. They exist, they function, they're reliable enough that organisms stake their lives on them. This means the goal isn't physically impossible, it's just engineering we haven't figured out yet. Imagine a future where quantum computers operate at room temperature, inspired by photosynthesis, where magnetic sensors, as sensitive as a bird's eyes, let us detect tiny magnetic anomalies, useful for medical imaging or mineral exploration, where artificial photosynthesis captures solar energy as efficiently as plants do, providing clean, abundant power, where quantum-enhanced catalysts make chemical manufacturing faster and less wasteful. All of this becomes conceivable once we accept that quantum biology is real and learn its secrets. Nature has already solved these problems. We just need to read the solutions carefully and translate them into technology. As you rest, consider that the line between biology and technology is blurring. We're starting to understand life in quantum mechanical terms, seeing cells and proteins not just as chemistry, but as quantum devices. And as we understand them, we begin to copy them, bringing quantum effects into human technology. The future might involve quantum biological hybrids, partly engineered, partly biological, using living systems or bio-inspired materials to achieve things neither pure biology nor pure engineering could do alone. We might grow quantum computers using proteins, or enhance human senses with quantum sensors, or create new forms of photosynthesis that feed both plants and solar panels. This is speculative, years or decades away, but the foundation is being laid now, in laboratories where scientists study cryptochrome proteins and photosystems and enzyme reactions, measuring quantum effects and learning how nature maintains them. You're living in the early days of this revolution. Quantum biology was barely recognized as a field a few decades ago. Now it's exploding, with discoveries coming rapidly, implications expanding, connections to technology becoming clearer. By the time you're much older, quantum biomimetics might be everywhere, hidden in devices and systems you use daily, inspired by birds and plants and bacteria that figured out these tricks billions of years ago. The quantum world and the living world are merging, in our understanding and soon in our technology. And you're witnessing it happen, even if quietly, even if slowly, even as you drift toward sleep with quantum processes running in your cells. Let's return to something fundamental. What does it mean that life uses quantum mechanics? Not just that it's built from atoms that obey quantum rules, everything is built from atoms, but that it actively exploits quantum phenomena for biological function. This is philosophically significant in ways that are still being unpacked. For most of the 20th century, quantum mechanics was seen as irrelevant to macroscopic phenomena. Yes, atoms are quantum, but their collective behavior, chemistry, biology, everyday physics, was thought to be fully explainable by classical rules. Quantum effects were believed to wash out at larger scales, becoming invisible in the noise of thermal motion and environmental interaction. This view has been overturned. Quantum effects persist at biological scales, not despite the warm, noisy environment, but sometimes because of it. Life has learned to use environmental noise constructively, to harness vibrations that would destroy quantum coherence in artificial systems, but somehow protect it in biological ones. This suggests that the quantum classical boundary is not fixed but context-dependent, and that biology has learned to manipulate this boundary. What does this mean for our understanding of life? One implication is that life is more fundamentally quantum than we thought. It's not just complex classical chemistry with quantum foundations we can ignore. It's quantum chemistry where the quantum aspects matter crucially. You can't fully understand photosynthesis without quantum mechanics. You can't explain bird navigation without quantum entanglement. You possibly can't account for enzyme efficiency without quantum tunneling. This means biology textbooks will need rewriting. Not dramatically. Most of what we know about cells and metabolism and genetics remains valid, but with quantum mechanics integrated more deeply into the explanations. Students will need to learn quantum biology alongside classical molecular biology, seeing both as essential to understanding life. It also means that the divide between physics and biology is less sharp than we thought. Physics isn't just the foundation upon which biology happens. It's a partner, with quantum effects and biological function co-evolving, each shaping the other. Evolution is constrained by physics, but also explores what physics makes possible, finding quantum effects that provide advantages and building biological structures around them. This co-evolution has been happening for billions of years, producing the sophisticated quantum biological machines we're now discovering. But it didn't stop in the past. It's still happening. Right now, evolution is continuing to refine quantum biological systems, responding to environmental changes, exploring new quantum solutions to biological problems. And as we understand this better, we gain new perspectives on evolution itself. Natural selection isn't just selecting for classical traits like size or speed or efficiency. It's also selecting for quantum properties, coherence times, tunneling rates, entanglement robustness. Evolution is, in a sense, a quantum engineer, optimizing quantum phenomena alongside everything else. This raises fascinating questions about inevitability. If life emerged elsewhere in the universe, would it also use quantum mechanics? Is quantum biology inevitable, something any sufficiently complex chemistry will stumble upon? Or is it contingent, dependent on specific circumstances that might not be common? We don't know yet. We have only one example of life, Earth life, and it uses quantum mechanics extensively, but that's a sample size of one. We can't generalize confidently. Maybe all life everywhere must be quantum biological. Or maybe quantum biology is a specific adaptation to Earth conditions, and life elsewhere might be different. The discovery of extraterrestrial life, if it happens, will help answer this. If we find life on Mars or Europa, or an exoplanet, one of the first questions will be, is it quantum biological? Does it use quantum tunneling in enzymes, quantum coherence in energy transfer, quantum entanglement in sensors? If yes, that suggests quantum biology is universal. If no, that tells us it's optional, and we'll need to understand what makes Earth life special. For now, all we know is that Earth life is quantum. And that's remarkable enough. Every organism, from bacteria to blue whales, is using quantum mechanics for essential functions. The entire biosphere is quantum biological, has been for billions of years, and we're only now realizing it. As you lie there, part of this quantum biological world, consider what it means. You're not just a classical object made of quantum parts. You're a quantum system at multiple scales, with quantum effects playing crucial functional roles, integrated seamlessly into the warm, wet, living reality of your body. The strangeness of quantum mechanics, the superposition, the tunneling, the entanglement, isn't locked away in theory or laboratories. It's in you right now, making your life possible. And that means the universe is stranger and more wonderful than classical intuition suggests. Stranger in ways that matter for the most important question: what is life? Temperature affects quantum biological processes in subtle ways. We've mentioned that quantum effects typically require cold temperatures, and yet biological systems operate at warm temperatures. But the relationship between temperature and quantum biology is more nuanced than simple warm bad, cold good. Some quantum effects actually benefit from certain types of thermal noise. In photosynthesis, researchers found that moderate vibrations, the kind caused by thermal motion at biological temperatures, can actually enhance quantum coherence rather than destroying it. This seems paradoxical, but the mathematics work out. The vibrations help prevent the system from getting trapped in local energy minima, allowing quantum walks to proceed more efficiently. This is called environment-assisted quantum transport, and it's a major discovery in quantum biology. It means that warm, noisy environments aren't necessarily hostile to quantum effects. Sometimes they're helpful, as long as the noise has the right characteristics. Evolution seems to have discovered this, tuning protein structures to produce vibrations that enhance quantum processes rather than destroying them. But there are limits, As temperature increases, eventually thermal energy overwhelms quantum coherence. The exact threshold depends on the system. Some quantum effects can survive to surprisingly high temperatures, others are fragile. This is why quantum biology operates in a narrow temperature range, the range where life typically exists, roughly 0 to 50 degrees Celsius for most organisms, with some extremophiles going beyond those boundaries. This temperature dependence has implications for where life can exist and what forms it might take. In very cold environments, quantum effects might be even more pronounced than in temperate zones. Some researchers speculate that organisms living in polar regions or the deep ocean might exploit quantum mechanics more extensively, simply because low temperatures make quantum coherence easier to maintain. Conversely, thermophiles, organisms that live in hot springs or deep sea vents at temperatures above 50 degrees C, might use quantum effects less, relying more on classical chemistry. Or they might have evolved special adaptations, protein structures that maintain quantum coherence even at high temperatures. We don't know yet. Quantum biology in extremophiles is an emerging research area. For you, lying in whatever temperature you find comfortable, your quantum biological processes are operating in their optimal range. Not too cold, which would slow down chemical reactions and make metabolism inefficient. Not too hot, which would denature proteins and disrupt quantum coherence. Just right, in the temperature range evolution optimized for over billions of years. Your body works hard to maintain this temperature. Homeothermy, warm-bloodedness, is partly about maintaining optimal conditions for quantum biology. Your metabolism generates heat, your circulatory system distributes it, your skin and respiration release excess, all to keep your core temperature around 37 degrees C. This isn't arbitrary. It's the temperature where your quantum biological machinery works best, where enzymes are fast but stable, where quantum effects survive long enough to be useful, but not so long that they interfere with classical processes. Cold-blooded animals, ectotherms, don't regulate temperature internally, but they still need to maintain temperatures compatible with quantum biology. They bask in sun or seek shade, burrow underground, or swim to different depths, behaviorally thermoregulating to stay in the range where life functions well. This is one more constraint evolution works within. Temperature affects every biological process, including quantum ones, and organisms must adapt. The result is a rich diversity of thermal strategies, from hibernation to fever, from antifreeze proteins to heat shock responses, all ultimately serving to keep quantum biological processes operating within viable ranges. As you rest, your body is managing its temperature without conscious effort. Blood vessels dilate or constrict, adjusting heat loss. Metabolic rate adjusts to produce more or less heat. If you're under blankets, you're trapping heat. If you're uncovered, you're releasing it. All of this unconscious regulation serves partly to maintain optimal conditions for the quantum processes keeping you alive. It's remarkable how many levels of organization are working simultaneously. Quantum effects in enzymes and photoreceptors, classical chemistry in metabolism and signaling, cellular processes in gene expression and protein synthesis, tissue-level coordination in organs and systems, organism-level behavior in movement and thermoregulation. All nested, all interacting, all necessary. And temperature is one of the parameters that must be controlled to keep everything functioning. Too far outside the optimal range, and quantum effects fail, enzymes slow, cells struggle, and eventually life stops. But within the range, in the sweet spot evolution found, quantum biology flourishes, making possible the extraordinary complexity and speed of living systems. Let your body do its work, maintaining that perfect temperature, while you drift and relax. It knows what it's doing, refined by billions of years of trial and error, optimized for the quantum biological machinery it carries. Quantum biology has implications for medicine. If we understand quantum effects in biological systems, we can design better drugs, develop new diagnostic tools, perhaps even treat diseases at the quantum level. This is still early, speculative in many ways, but the possibilities are intriguing. Take enzymes. Many drugs work by inhibiting enzymes, blocking chemical reactions that contribute to disease. But if those enzymes work through quantum tunneling, then drug design should account for quantum effects. A drug molecule that blocks classical enzyme pathways might not affect quantum tunneling pathways, reducing effectiveness. Or it might disrupt quantum coherence. shutting down the enzyme more completely than expected. Understanding quantum enzyme mechanisms could lead to more effective drugs, designed specifically to interfere with quantum processes. This is already happening in some areas. Researchers studying HIV protease, an enzyme crucial for viral reproduction, have found quantum tunneling signatures. Anti-HIV drugs target this enzyme, and understanding its quantum behavior helps optimize drug design. Similarly, understanding quantum effects in photoreceptors could lead to better treatments for vision problems. If quantum mechanics is essential for normal vision, then certain genetic mutations might affect quantum processes, causing vision defects that have quantum mechanical origins. Treating such conditions might require approaches that account for quantum effects. There's also potential in diagnostics. If birds can detect magnetic fields through quantum sensors in their eyes, maybe we can develop medical devices that detect disease through similar quantum mechanisms. Imagine a quantum sensor sensitive enough to detect the tiny magnetic fields generated by neural activity, providing a new type of brain imaging. Or sensors that detect quantum signatures of cancer cells, identifying tumors earlier than current methods. Some of this is far future speculation, but some is already emerging. Quantum dots, artificial nanoparticles with quantum properties, are being developed for medical imaging. They can be designed to bind to specific cells or molecules, then illuminated to produce quantum signals that reveal their location. This isn't quantum biology in the sense of natural systems, but it's inspired by quantum biological principles, applying quantum effects to medicine. Anesthesia might have quantum aspects. We still don't fully understand how anesthetics work, how they cause unconsciousness. The Penrose-Hameroff theory of quantum consciousness suggests anesthetics work by disrupting quantum processes in microtubules. While controversial, some experimental evidence supports this. If true, understanding quantum effects in neurons could lead to better anesthetics, more precise control over consciousness during surgery. There's even speculation about quantum effects in pharmaceuticals themselves. Some drug molecules might work through quantum tunneling, crossing cell membranes, or entering receptors through quantum mechanical paths. If so, understanding and optimizing these quantum properties could create more effective medicines. But we must be careful. Quantum biology is real, but it's also easy to oversell. Not every biological mystery has a quantum explanation. Most medicine can be understood classically, and most treatments will continue to be classical. Quantum effects matter in specific contexts: enzyme mechanisms, photoreception, possibly navigation and olfaction. But they're not a magic explanation for everything. Still, the potential is real. As we understand quantum biology better, medical applications will follow. We'll design drugs that account for quantum tunneling. We'll develop diagnostic tools inspired by quantum biological sensors. We'll perhaps treat some diseases at the quantum level, targeting quantum processes that go wrong. And all of this will rest on the fundamental insight that life is quantum, that biological function involves quantum effects at multiple levels, and that understanding those effects opens new possibilities for healing and enhancement. As you rest, healthy or fighting off some minor ailment or managing a chronic condition, consider that future medicine might work partly at the quantum level. Doctors might prescribe drugs designed with quantum mechanics in mind. Scanners might use quantum sensors to detect disease. Treatments might target quantum processes gone awry. The boundary between quantum physics and medicine is beginning to blur, just as the boundary between quantum physics and biology has. And in that blurring, new possibilities emerge, new ways to understand health and disease, new approaches to maintaining the quantum biological machinery that keeps you alive. Let's consider what quantum biology means for the origin of life. How did life begin on early Earth? This is one of the great unsolved questions in science. We know it happened. We're here after all. But the details remain mysterious. And increasingly, researchers suspect quantum mechanics might have played a role from the very beginning. The classical picture of life's origin involves chemistry. Simple organic molecules form in the atmosphere or ocean, perhaps lightning-driven or delivered by meteorites. These molecules accumulate in tide pools or hydrothermal vents. Gradually, through random chemical reactions, more complex molecules form. Eventually, self-replicating molecules emerge, probably RNA or something similar. These replicators evolve, competing for resources, becoming more sophisticated. Cellular structures develop, metabolism becomes organized, and eventually recognizable cells emerge. This picture is probably broadly correct, but it leaves out quantum mechanics. If modern life depends on quantum effects, did early life also? Or did quantum biology emerge later, after life was already established? The answer might be that quantum effects were essential from the start. The very first replicating molecules might have used quantum tunneling to speed up chemical reactions, making replication fast enough to compete with degradation. The first proto-metabolisms might have used quantum coherence to transfer energy efficiently, extracting more energy from the environment than classical chemistry would allow. This would help explain one of the puzzles about life's origin. How did it happen so fast? Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago. The earliest evidence of life is from 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago, possibly earlier. That means life emerged within a few hundred million years, possibly much faster. Given the complexity even the simplest life has, this seems surprisingly quick. Quantum effects might provide part of the answer. If early self-replicating systems could exploit quantum tunneling and coherence, they could evolve faster, replicate faster, adapt faster. Quantum advantages would be preserved by natural selection, leading to increasingly sophisticated quantum biological mechanisms. This suggests that life might be inherently quantum from its very origins, that quantum biology isn't something that evolved later, but was present at the beginning. The first living things, whatever they were, might already have been using quantum mechanics for essential functions. If true, this has implications for life elsewhere. The chemical building blocks for life, organic molecules, water, energy sources, are common in the universe. But if life also requires the ability to maintain quantum coherence in warm, wet environments, that might be a more stringent requirement. Not every chemical system can do this. It requires specific molecular architectures, precise distances, carefully tuned environments. This might make life rarer than we hope. Or it might not. Maybe any sufficiently complex chemistry will naturally discover quantum effects, just as Earth life did. We can't know without more examples, which is why the search for extraterrestrial life is so important. Every new example of life we find will help us understand whether quantum biology is universal or contingent, inevitable or rare. For now, we can marvel at the fact that life on Earth, from its earliest origins to its current complexity, appears to be quantum mechanical. That the first replicators might have been quantum devices. That evolution has been optimizing quantum processes for billions of years. That you are the product of quantum biology operating across vast timescales. As you drift towards sleep, consider that your existence traces back to quantum events in the ancient past. Random quantum tunneling events in early molecules, creating variations that natural selection could act upon. Quantum coherence in primitive photosystems, capturing solar energy and powering early ecosystems. Quantum biological advantages accumulating over billions of years, leading eventually to complex life, to consciousness, to you lying here thinking about your quantum origins. It's a long, strange journey from quantum fluctuations in primordial molecules to a conscious being contemplating quantum biology. But that journey happened, and you're living proof of it. Let's talk about quantum effects in DNA repair, because your cells are constantly fixing damage to your genetic material, and some of this repair might involve quantum mechanics. Every day, your DNA suffers thousands of insults: radiation from the sun, cosmic rays, oxidative damage from your own metabolism, errors during replication. If these damages weren't repaired, mutations would accumulate rapidly, cells would malfunction, and you'd quickly develop cancer or other diseases. Fortunately, you have sophisticated DNA repair systems constantly patrolling your genome, finding and fixing damage. There are multiple repair pathways, each specialized for different types of damage. And increasingly, researchers suspect that some of these repair mechanisms involve quantum effects, particularly quantum tunneling. One type of damage is particularly interesting: thymine dimers, where two adjacent thymine bases in DNA become abnormally bonded together after exposure to ultraviolet light. This distorts the DNA structure and blocks replication. An enzyme called photolyase can repair these dimers using blue light energy, and the mechanism appears to involve quantum tunneling of electrons. Here's how it works. Photolyase binds to the damaged DNA and absorbs a photon of blue light. This energy excites an electron, which then tunnels from the enzyme to the thymine dimer. The electron transfer breaks the abnormal bond between the thymines, restoring normal DNA structure. Then the electron tunnels back to the enzyme. The whole process takes about a nanosecond, and quantum tunneling makes it possible. Without tunneling, the electron couldn't reach the damaged site. There's an energy barrier in the way, but quantum mechanically, the electron can tunnel through this barrier, appearing at the damaged site and fixing it before tunneling back. It's a quantum mechanical repair mechanism, one of many your cells use to maintain genome integrity. Other repair enzymes might use quantum tunneling too. Base excision repair, which removes damaged bases and replaces them, involves enzymes that need to flip bases out of the DNA helix to access them. This flipping might be assisted by quantum tunneling, allowing bases to cross energy barriers more easily. The enzymes then remove the damaged base and insert a correct one. There's also evidence that the search process itself, how repair enzymes find damaged sites among billions of normal base pairs, might involve quantum effects. Classical diffusion seems too slow to explain how enzymes locate rare damage sites so quickly. Some researchers propose that enzymes use quantum tunneling to probe the DNA as they slide along it, detecting subtle electronic differences that indicate damage. Think about what this means. Your genome is under constant quantum mechanical surveillance. Repair enzymes are using quantum tunneling to find and fix damage, preventing mutations that would otherwise accumulate. Every cell in your body has multiple copies of these quantum repair machines, working continuously, keeping your genetic information intact. This quantum repair happens most actively in cells that divide frequently: skin cells exposed to sunlight, cells lining your digestive tract, immune cells. But it happens everywhere, in every cell type, maintaining the genetic instructions that define who you are. Without quantum repair mechanisms, genome stability would be much harder to maintain, and complex multicellular life might be impossible. The implications extend to aging and cancer. As we age, DNA repair becomes less efficient. Damage accumulates faster than it can be fixed. If repair involves quantum effects, then age-related decline in quantum efficiency could contribute to aging. Perhaps the protein structures that maintain quantum coherence in repair enzymes degrade over time, or perhaps the quantum tunneling rates decrease for some reason. Cancer often involves mutations in DNA repair genes. Cells with defective repair accumulate mutations faster, eventually becoming cancerous. If these repair mechanisms are quantum mechanical, then cancer partly results from quantum effects failing, tunneling events not happening when they should, quantum coherence being disrupted, quantum repair machinery breaking down. Understanding the quantum aspects of DNA repair could lead to new cancer treatments. If we could enhance quantum tunneling in repair enzymes, we might prevent mutations more effectively. If we could protect quantum coherence in repair machinery, we might slow aging. These are speculative ideas, but they follow logically from the discovery that DNA repair involves quantum mechanics. Right now, as you rest, repair enzymes are working throughout your body. Electrons are tunneling from enzymes to damaged DNA sites. Quantum effects are fixing errors, maintaining genetic integrity, preventing the slow accumulation of damage that would otherwise kill you. You're being repaired at the quantum level, constantly, automatically, by molecular machines refined over billions of years of evolution. This repair never stops. Even while you sleep, even when you're completely still, quantum repair continues in every cell. It's one more example of quantum biology operating in the background, invisible but essential, making possible the stability and longevity of complex life. And it's remarkably reliable. Despite the thousands of DNA damage events per cell per day, cancer is relatively rare, at least until old age. Most damage gets repaired correctly, thanks to quantum mechanical processes that work with extraordinary fidelity. The accuracy is astonishing when you consider the scale. Billions of cells, trillions of base pairs, continuous damage and repair, mostly error-free. Let this knowledge settle as you drift. Your body is maintaining itself at the quantum level. Repair is happening right now, in the darkness of your cells, in the invisible molecular world where electrons tunnel and DNA gets fixed. You're not just alive. You're being actively preserved, moment by moment, through quantum mechanical processes you never consciously direct, but that work tirelessly on your behalf. Tomorrow you'll wake, and your genome will be slightly more repaired than when you went to sleep. Damage accumulated during the day will have been largely fixed overnight. Quantum tunneling will have restored DNA structure in countless cells, and you'll continue living, unaware of the quantum maintenance happening inside you, but benefiting from it nonetheless. Sleep peacefully, knowing that quantum repair is working. Your DNA is being protected by quantum mechanics, preserved against damage, maintained for another day of life. The quantum world is taking care of you, even as you rest. Let's talk about something that connects everything we've discussed: the concept of quantum coherence in biological systems, and what it really means. We've mentioned coherence many times, but it's worth understanding more deeply, because it's at the heart of what makes quantum biology so remarkable and so puzzling. Quantum coherence is when a quantum system maintains definite phase relationships between different parts of its wave function. In simpler terms, it's when quantum effects, superposition, interference, entanglement, remain intact and functional, rather than collapsing into classical randomness. It's the difference between a system that behaves quantum mechanically and one that behaves classically. In laboratory quantum experiments, maintaining coherence requires heroic efforts. Scientists cool systems to millikelvin temperatures, fractions of a degree above absolute zero. They isolate them in vacuum chambers. They shield them from electromagnetic interference. They work with systems containing just a few particles, because more particles mean more ways for coherence to be destroyed. Even with all these precautions, coherence times are typically measured in microseconds or milliseconds, tiny fractions of a second. And then there's biology. Room temperature, about 300 Kelvin. Surrounded by water molecules constantly jiggling and bumping, filled with ions and charged molecules creating electric fields, bathed in thermal radiation, systems containing billions of particles in close proximity. By every rule of thumb from quantum physics, coherence should vanish essentially instantly, in femtoseconds, before any biological function could make use of it. But it doesn't. Coherence in photosynthetic systems lasts hundreds of femtoseconds, long enough for quantum walks to guide energy to reaction centers. Coherence in cryptochrome proteins lasts microseconds, long enough for magnetic field detection. Coherence in enzyme reactions lasts long enough for tunneling to occur reliably. Somehow, impossibly, biology maintains quantum coherence in the worst possible conditions for it. How? This is one of the central questions in quantum biology, and we're still piecing together the answer. Part of it involves structure. Proteins create microenvironments that partially shield quantum processes from outside noise. The scaffolding of the protein acts like insulation. Not perfect, but good enough to extend coherence times beyond what random molecular soup would allow. Part of it involves motion. This seems counterintuitive. Motion should destroy coherence, but certain types of protein vibrations actually help. They create what's called a phonon bath, organized thermal energy, rather than random noise. These vibrations can protect quantum coherence through a mechanism called environment-assisted quantum transport, where the environment helps the quantum process rather than hindering it. It's like surfing. Random waves would knock you down, but structured waves let you ride them. Part of it might involve something even stranger. Life might be operating in a regime where the boundary between quantum and classical is naturally fuzzy. Maybe at biological temperatures and scales, you don't get instant decoherence, but gradual transition. The system is partly quantum, partly classical, existing in a twilight zone where both descriptions apply. And maybe evolution learned to exploit precisely this regime, where quantum effects are still strong enough to be useful, but not so fragile that they vanish before contributing to function. This last possibility is fascinating, because it suggests that life exists at a special place in the landscape of possible physical systems. Not too small and cold, where everything is quantum. Not too large and warm, where everything is classical. But right at the boundary, where quantum effects can influence classical outcomes, where superposition can guide real-world energy flow, where entanglement can affect biological function. Some physicists and philosophers find deep meaning in this. Maybe life requires this boundary regime. Maybe consciousness, if it has quantum aspects, can only emerge at this special scale and temperature where quantum and classical overlap. Maybe the universe had to have certain properties, certain temperature ranges, certain molecular sizes, certain decoherence timescales, for life and consciousness to be possible at all. This touches on anthropic arguments, the idea that we observe the universe we do, because only this kind of universe could produce observers. If quantum coherence in warm conditions weren't possible, quantum biology wouldn't work, complex life might not evolve, and there'd be no one to wonder about these questions. The fact that we're here asking about quantum coherence in biology might tell us something deep about the universe's structure, or maybe not. Maybe life just got lucky, finding ways to exploit whatever physics offered. Maybe other universes with different laws could produce life through entirely different mechanisms. We can't know from a sample of one universe and one origin of life. But we can marvel at what we do know. That right here, right now, in your body and in all living things, quantum coherence persists in impossible conditions, making possible the chemistry that makes you alive. That evolution discovered how to maintain coherence billions of years ago and has been refining the techniques ever since. That you are a coherence-maintaining system, keeping quantum effects alive long enough to tunnel electrons, guide energy, detect magnetic fields, and perhaps do things we haven't discovered yet. As you rest, those coherence-maintaining mechanisms are working. Protein structures are shielding quantum processes. Organized vibrations are protecting superposition states. Energy is flowing through quantum pathways that shouldn't exist but do, because life found a way. Because the impossible becomes possible at the boundary between quantum and classical where biology lives. This is where you exist. Not in the fully quantum realm of isolated atoms, not in the fully classical realm of large warm objects, but at the boundary where both are true simultaneously, where quantum weirdness and classical solidity merge into the phenomenon we call life. And in that boundary space, extraordinary things become possible. Quantum effects can influence biological outcomes. Classical structures can protect quantum coherence. The wave function doesn't simply collapse, it guides, influences, creates possibilities that purely classical chemistry couldn't achieve. Let yourself rest in that boundary space. You're neither fully quantum nor fully classical, but wonderfully both. A hybrid system that demonstrates every moment that the universe is richer and stranger than any single physical theory can capture. You're living proof that quantum mechanics matters at human scales, that coherence can persist in warmth and noise, that the impossible is routine when life does it. Sleep gently at that boundary, where quantum meets classical, where the strange becomes familiar, where you exist. There's something poetic about the fact that we're discovering quantum biology now, in this particular moment in history. For centuries, humans have been trying to understand life, dissecting organisms, studying cells, mapping molecules. We've made enormous progress. We understand genetics, metabolism, development, ecology. We can manipulate life, engineer bacteria, edit genes, cure diseases. And yet, we missed something fundamental. We missed that life is quantum, that it depends on effects we thought were irrelevant to biology. We built entire fields, biochemistry, molecular biology, physiology, without realizing that quantum mechanics wasn't just a foundational detail, but an active participant in biological function. Why did we miss it for so long? Partly because the tools to detect quantum effects in living systems didn't exist until recently. You need ultra-fast lasers to measure femtosecond coherence times. You need sophisticated spectroscopy to detect quantum beating patterns. You need computational power to simulate quantum dynamics in complex molecules. These capabilities only emerged in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. But partly, we missed it because of conceptual barriers. Physicists and biologists spoke different languages, worked in different departments, addressed different questions. Physicists studied quantum mechanics in controlled, simplified systems. Biologists studied living complexity, assuming it was fundamentally classical. The idea that quantum effects could persist and matter in living systems seemed implausible to both groups, so nobody looked very hard. It took pioneers willing to cross disciplinary boundaries, people trained in both physics and biology, or willing to learn both, to ask the right questions and develop the right experimental approaches. It took people willing to look foolish, proposing quantum effects in biology when the mainstream thought it unlikely. And it took technological advances that made detection possible. Now we're in the early days of a revolution in understanding. Quantum biology is exploding as a field, with new discoveries coming rapidly, implications spreading to medicine and technology and philosophy. We're rewriting our understanding of life at a fundamental level, recognizing that quantum mechanics isn't an optional add-on, but essential to how biology works. And this is happening in your lifetime. You're living through the discovery that life is quantum. Future generations will grow up learning quantum biology from the start, seeing it as obvious and natural. But you're here at the transition, when it's still new and surprising, when the implications are still being worked out, when each discovery feels like a revelation. There's something special about living through a scientific revolution. Most of history is incremental progress, small advances building on previous work, filling in details, refining understanding. But occasionally, rarely, the whole picture shifts. A new framework emerges that reorganizes everything we thought we knew. Quantum mechanics itself was such a revolution in the early 20th century. Evolution was one in the 19th. Relativity, genetics, plate tectonics, the Big Bang. These are the moments when human understanding takes a leap, when we see the world differently afterward. Quantum biology is such a moment. It's not just a new fact added to the pile, it's a new way of seeing life itself, a recognition that biological function and quantum mechanics are intertwined at deep levels. And you're witnessing it unfold, even if quietly, even if most people aren't paying attention yet. In decades to come, historians of science will look back at this period, the late 20th and early 21st centuries, as the era when humanity discovered quantum biology. They'll trace the key experiments, the theoretical breakthroughs, the technological advances that made detection possible. They'll note the pioneers who pushed past skepticism, and they'll mark this as a turning point in our understanding of life. You're living in that turning point. These discoveries are happening now, in laboratories around the world, as scientists measure coherence times and map quantum pathways and uncover mechanisms that evolution discovered billions of years ago. The knowledge is spreading, slowly percolating through the scientific community and beginning to reach the public. And as it spreads, it changes how we see ourselves and all living things. There's a privilege in this, being present for a revolution in understanding. Most people through history lived in times of incremental progress. You're fortunate enough to live when the picture is shifting, when new frontiers are opening, when the impossible is becoming possible right before our eyes. And it's not just abstract knowledge, it's intimate. The discoveries aren't about distant galaxies or exotic particles. They're about you, about your cells and molecules and the quantum processes keeping you alive. The revolution is in understanding yourself at a deeper level, recognizing that you're quantum mechanical in ways nobody suspected until recently. As you drift towards sleep, consider this gift of timing. You could have lived before these discoveries, never knowing that your vision involves quantum superposition, that your metabolism depends on quantum tunneling, that birds navigate using quantum entanglement. You could have lived after these discoveries, when they're old news, textbook material, obvious to everyone. But you're living right now, in the moment of discovery, when quantum biology is transitioning from speculation to established fact, when the implications are still fresh and surprising. Tomorrow, when you wake, remember that you're living through a revolution. The world hasn't changed. These quantum effects have been happening all along, but our understanding has, and that changes everything. We see life differently now. We see ourselves differently. We recognize that we're quantum beings, that the strange physics we thought was locked away in laboratories is actually the physics of life itself. And that makes this era special. Makes your life special for happening now, during the discovery rather than before or after. You're witnessing humanity learn something fundamental about itself, about life, about the deep connection between quantum mechanics and biology that was hidden for billions of years and is only now being revealed. Rest well in this remarkable moment in history. The revolution is unfolding while you sleep. Let's explore one more aspect of quantum biology that we haven't fully addressed: the role of water. Water is everywhere in biology, making up 60 to 70% of your body mass, surrounding every molecule, participating in almost every reaction. And water might play a crucial role in quantum biological processes, not just as a passive medium, but as an active participant. Water molecules are small, light, and highly polar, with a partial positive charge on the hydrogen atoms and partial negative on the oxygen. This polarity makes water molecules interact strongly with each other and with other molecules, forming hydrogen bonds that constantly break and reform, creating a dynamic network that's never static. This dynamic behavior might help protect quantum coherence. Water molecules surrounding a protein can absorb and redistribute energy, preventing it from destroying quantum states inside the protein. They create a kind of buffer zone, insulating quantum processes from the harshest aspects of the thermal environment. Not perfectly. Nothing could provide perfect isolation at room temperature, but well enough to extend coherence times from femtoseconds to nanoseconds or beyond. Recent research has even suggested that water itself might exhibit quantum effects under certain conditions. Water molecules can form chains through hydrogen bonding, and these chains might support quantum coherence over short distances and times. Protons can tunnel between water molecules, creating what are called proton wires that transport charge through quantum mechanical means rather than classical diffusion. This quantum proton transfer might be important in enzyme mechanisms. Many enzymes involve moving protons from one molecule to another, and quantum tunneling could make this faster and more efficient than classical transfer. The water molecules surrounding the enzyme active site might participate in these quantum pathways, forming temporary bridges that allow protons to tunnel across. There's also speculation about quantum effects in the structure of water itself. Water is unusual. It expands when it freezes. It has an exceptionally high heat capacity. It's an excellent solvent for both charged and polar molecules. Some of these properties might arise from quantum effects in hydrogen bonding, though this is still debated. If true, it would mean that water's biological importance is not just its chemical properties, but also its quantum properties. Think about what this means. Water isn't just the stage on which quantum biology performs, it's part of the cast. It's actively involved in maintaining and perhaps even enabling quantum effects that make life possible. The same molecule that makes up most of your body, that you drink to stay hydrated, that covers most of Earth's surface, might be a quantum mechanical actor in the drama of life. Your body is mostly water, and that water is participating in countless quantum processes right now. Protons are tunneling between water molecules in your cells. Water networks are protecting quantum coherence in your proteins. Hydrogen bonds are breaking and forming in patterns that might have quantum aspects we don't fully understand yet. And all of this is happening in liquid water, at body temperature, in the chaotic molecular environment of living cells. Water should be a quantum decoherence machine. All those molecules bouncing around should destroy quantum effects instantly. But instead, water seems to help maintain them, to participate in them, to make quantum biology possible in ways we're only beginning to appreciate. This changes how we think about water's role in life. We've long known water is essential. Life as we know it requires liquid water, and the search for life on other planets focuses on finding water. But we thought of water primarily as a solvent, a medium in which biochemistry happens. Now we're discovering it might be a quantum medium, not just hosting quantum biology, but enabling it. If this is true, then the requirement for liquid water in life isn't just about chemistry, it's about quantum mechanics. Liquid water might provide the perfect balance of fluidity and structure, chaos and order, to maintain quantum coherence at biological temperatures. Too solid, like ice, and molecules can't move freely. Too loose, like steam, and there's no structure to protect quantum states. But liquid water, with its dynamic hydrogen-bonded network, might be just right. This could make life more rare in the universe than we hope. Not every planet has liquid water, and not every solvent might support quantum biology the way water does. If quantum effects are essential for life, and if water is essential for quantum effects, then life requires planets with temperatures and pressures that keep water liquid, a fairly narrow range in cosmic terms. Or maybe other solvents could work. Maybe ammonia or methane, which are liquid at different temperatures, could support different forms of quantum biology. We don't know. But Earth life uses water, and water seems deeply integrated with quantum biological processes, suggesting the two evolved together, each enabling the other. As you lie there, your body mostly water. Consider that those water molecules are doing more than you probably imagined. They're not just filling space or dissolving things. They're participating in quantum processes, protecting coherence, enabling tunneling, making possible the quantum biology that keeps you alive. Every sip of water you drink becomes part of this quantum biological system. Those molecules will be incorporated into cells, will surround proteins, will participate in quantum processes you'll never consciously notice, but that are essential for your survival. Water is life, yes, but more than we knew. It's quantum life, actively involved in the strange physics that makes biology work. Let that sink in as you drift. You're not just flesh and bone and blood. You're mostly water, and that water is quantum mechanically active, part of the machinery of life at the deepest level. You're a quantum water system, alive and conscious and resting, made possible by the unique properties of the universe's most common liquid. We're approaching the end of our journey, so let's zoom out and consider the biggest picture. What does quantum biology tell us about the universe and our place in it? These are philosophical questions, beyond science in some ways, but worth contemplating as you rest. Quantum mechanics reveals that reality is fundamentally different from how it appears. The universe at its deepest level is probabilistic, non-local, characterized by superposition and entanglement and uncertainty. The solid, definite, classical world we experience emerges somehow from this quantum substrate. But the emergence is still mysterious. The so-called measurement problem, the question of how the quantum wave function becomes classical reality. Biology sits right at this boundary. Living systems are large enough to be partly classical. Your body has a definite location. You move through space normally, cause and effect work as expected. But living systems are also small and fast enough that quantum effects matter. You're simultaneously quantum and classical, existing in both regimes, bridging the gap between them. This raises profound questions about consciousness and observation. In quantum mechanics, observation collapses the wave function, forcing quantum superposition into classical definiteness. But what counts as observation? Does it require consciousness, or is any physical interaction sufficient? This is deeply controversial, with physicists holding radically different views. Quantum biology doesn't solve this problem, but it adds an interesting perspective. If your body is performing quantum measurements constantly, in your retinas, in your mitochondria, possibly in your neurons, then you are always collapsing wave functions, always participating in the quantum to classical transition. You're not separate from quantum mechanics, observing it from outside. You're immersed in it, part of it, performing quantum measurements every moment you're alive. This suggests that consciousness, whatever it is, emerges from a system that's deeply quantum. Not necessarily quantum consciousness in the exotic sense Penrose and Hameroff propose, but consciousness arising from a fundamentally quantum substrate. Your brain runs on quantum metabolism. Your sensory systems might use quantum effects. You are built from quantum processes, and consciousness somehow emerges from that quantum activity. Does this mean the universe requires consciousness? That observation is fundamental? Or is consciousness just another physical process, no more mysterious than digestion or circulation? Quantum biology doesn't answer this, but it reminds us that consciousness and quantum mechanics are more entangled than we might have thought. Literally, if quantum effects play any role in brain function. There's also something profound about the fact that life discovered quantum mechanics before humans did. Evolution was exploiting superposition, tunneling, entanglement for billions of years before we had words for these phenomena. In some sense, biology understood quantum mechanics before physics did. It didn't understand conceptually, or mathematically of course, but it understood practically. It knew how to use quantum effects, how to maintain coherence, how to extract advantages from quantum properties. This suggests that the universe is more knowable than we might fear. If blind evolution can discover quantum mechanics through trial and error, then conscious investigation should certainly be able to understand it. The fact that we find quantum mechanics confusing and counterintuitive might just be a limitation of our classical intuitions, not a fundamental barrier to understanding. And it suggests that science is discovering, not inventing. The quantum effects we're finding in biology were always there, operating for billions of years, making life possible long before we noticed. Science is revealing what evolution already knew, translating practical biological knowledge into human conceptual frameworks. We're reading biology's solutions to quantum problems, learning from life how to work with quantum mechanics in warm, complex systems. This is humbling and empowering simultaneously. Humbling because evolution is such a better quantum engineer than we are, having had billions of years of practice. Empowering because it shows that quantum mechanics at room temperature is possible, that the challenges we face in quantum technology have been solved by biology, and we can learn from those solutions. Looking even bigger, quantum biology hints at a universe where the strange and the familiar are intimately connected. Quantum mechanics isn't just the physics of the very small. It reaches up into biology, into life, possibly into consciousness. The wave function isn't just an abstract mathematical tool. It describes energy transfer in your cells, electron flow in your metabolism, maybe even aspects of your perception and thought. Reality is weirder than it looks, but also more beautiful. The quantum realm and the living world aren't separate but merged, interpenetrating, each making the other possible. You couldn't exist without quantum mechanics, and quantum effects couldn't persist in warm environments without the sophisticated structures evolution built. It's a partnership billions of years old, still being optimized, still revealing new surprises. As you rest at the end of this journey, consider your place in this quantum universe. You're not separate from the strange physics underlying reality. You're made of it, powered by it, possibly experiencing consciousness through it. The boundary between you and the quantum realm isn't distant. It's intimate, immediate, running through every cell. And that makes you part of something vast. You're connected to the fundamental nature of reality, to the quantum fields and particles that constitute everything. You're a pattern in those fields, a temporary organization that maintains itself through constant quantum activity, a wave in the quantum ocean that somehow became self-aware. Let that perspective wash over you. You're quantum, you're classical, you're both, you're neither. You're a bridge between regimes, a demonstration that the universe's strange foundations can produce warm, living, conscious beings. You're living proof that quantum mechanics isn't cold and abstract, but the very physics of life itself. Rest in that knowledge. Sleep as a quantum being, doing quantum things, proving every moment that the impossible is routine when the universe does it through life. We've reached the end of our journey through quantum biology, and it's time to let these thoughts settle, to let sleep come gently as we reflect one last time on what it all means. Throughout this long exploration, we've discovered that life is stranger and more wonderful than classical biology suggested. Quantum mechanics, that bizarre, counterintuitive theory that describes atoms and particles, turns out to be essential for biology. Your metabolism runs on quantum tunneling. Your vision might involve quantum superposition. Birds navigate using quantum entanglement. Plants capture sunlight through quantum coherence. Enzymes speed up reactions through quantum effects. Perhaps even your thoughts involve quantum processes we're only beginning to understand. None of this was obvious. For most of scientific history, quantum mechanics and biology seemed like separate domains, one dealing with the very small and cold, the other with the warm and living. The discovery that they're deeply connected, that life depends on quantum effects operating in impossible conditions, is one of the great revelations of our time. And you're part of this quantum biological reality, not as an abstract fact, but as lived experience. Right now, as you breathe slowly, as your body relaxes, as sleep approaches, quantum processes are keeping you alive. Electrons are tunneling in your mitochondria, producing the ATP that powers your cells. Quantum effects in your retinas made it possible to see these words. Quantum mechanisms throughout your body are operating silently, reliably, making possible every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of consciousness. You are a quantum system. Not just at the atomic level, everyone knows atoms are quantum, but at the functional biological level. The chemistry that keeps you alive is quantum chemistry. The energy flowing through your body follows quantum pathways. You are, in the deepest sense, a quantum being living in a quantum universe. demonstrating every moment that warm, wet, conscious life and quantum mechanics can coexist beautifully. This knowledge changes nothing practical. You were quantum before you knew it, and you'll continue being quantum after you forget. But perhaps it changes something deeper. Perhaps it gives you a sense of connection to the fundamental nature of reality, a recognition that you're not separate from the strange quantum realm, but made of it, powered by it, possibly experiencing consciousness through it. Perhaps it also gives you a sense of wonder. The universe is so much richer than it appears. Behind the solid, definite, classical world of everyday experience lies a quantum substrate of superposition and tunneling and entanglement. And somehow, impossibly, life exists at the boundary between them, exploiting both regimes, using quantum effects for biological purposes while maintaining enough classical stability to persist and reproduce and evolve. Evolution discovered all of this billions of years ago, without mathematics or laboratories, simply through trial and error across countless generations. Natural selection preserved quantum advantages, optimized quantum mechanisms, built biological structures that maintain coherence in impossible conditions. The result is the extraordinary sophistication of living systems, quantum devices operating at room temperature, doing things human engineers still struggle to replicate. And now we're beginning to understand what evolution discovered. We're measuring coherence times in proteins, mapping quantum pathways in enzymes, uncovering the mechanisms that make quantum biology possible. We're translating biology's quantum secrets into human knowledge, learning from life how to work with quantum mechanics in warm, complex environments. This is just the beginning. Quantum biology is a young field, with most discoveries still ahead. Future researchers will find quantum effects in places we haven't looked yet. We'll understand mechanisms that remain mysterious now. We'll apply quantum biological principles in ways we can't yet imagine. The revolution in understanding that you're living through will continue, deepening and broadening, reshaping biology and medicine and technology. But for now, tonight, it's enough to rest with what we know. You're quantum. Life is quantum. The universe is quantum beneath its classical surface. And that makes reality more beautiful and strange than we ever imagined. As sleep takes you, let go of trying to understand every detail. Quantum mechanics is famously difficult to grasp intuitively. Even physicists who work with it daily admit it's weird. But you do not need to understand the mathematics to appreciate the reality that you're part of something extraordinary, that your existence depends on quantum effects, that the boundary between the possible and impossible runs right through your living body. Let your breathing slow completely now. Let your thoughts drift away. Let your body relax into stillness, trusting the quantum processes that will keep you alive through the night, that need no conscious direction, that have been operating since before you were born and will continue until the end. You're safe in this quantum universe. The same physics that seems strange and threatening when described abstractly is actually the physics of warmth and life and consciousness. It's your physics, the physics that makes you possible, that keeps you alive, that lets you experience the world. Sleep peacefully, quantum being. Dream quantum dreams, if you dream at all. And wake tomorrow to a quantum world, stranger and more wonderful than common sense suggests, but home nonetheless, the only universe we have, the one that made us and sustains us and lets us wonder about our quantum nature. Thank you for joining this journey into quantum biology. Thank you for your curiosity, your patience, your willingness to explore these ideas. And thank you for being here, for existing as a living example that quantum mechanics and warm, conscious life are not just compatible but inseparable. Rest well. The quantum world will still be there when you wake, as it always has been, waiting to be discovered again in every breath, every sight, every moment of being alive. Good night.